What's up, everyone? It's Sunday night, which means it's time to wind down your weekend here at Bat City Comic Professionals. As always, I'm Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, and with me is Wednesday Phil. What's up, Phil?
Hello. I'm doing very well. Excited to be here. There's a lot of great indie comics this week. A lot of fun stuff. I cannot wait.
Yeah, we warned you last week. This is a big week for indie comics, and Phil actually came like a whole day early. There were so many.
Yes, and I didn't even get through all of it. There was still some that I didn't even get to because my eyes started to roll back into my head, and I was like, I can't. I was here yesterday, and I was sitting there trying to read Minor Threats. I was trying to catch up on the Patton Oswalt book, and I literally am sitting there, and my eyes are rolling back in my head. I was like, all right, I'm done. I gotta go home. I need sleep. But yeah, I'm very excited. A lot of really wonderful stuff. So.
Yes, it's going to be a good week for comics. We are going to drink this imagery wine. I'm very excited.
Yes.
Phil and I actually picked out the bottle of wine together for once, which is a first. Usually one of us picks a wine, and no matter what, Phil hates it. But this week we're drinking imagery, and let's see what we think.
It's not terrible.
I like it. Of course that I like it. It's
it's like right on the border of being too intense, but it's not, and it has just enough grape flavor to where I'm like, this can work.
And it's actually raspberries and plum. So raspberry and plum is the blend that they add into it. What's cool about this one, though, is that they actually, for the last 20 years, have been pairing wines with art in an art gallery in Sonoma Valley. So they raise their grapes and they make their wines, but then they have an art gallery.
Add imagery. Wine is art.
Mm-hmm. Which is great because we're going to talk to you about a lot of art while we drink a lot of wine, specifically this imagery.
It's not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
I'm in.
Costco.
And it's a cab sav, so if you like reds, you're probably gonna like this. I'm gonna hand this to you because I am all the comics. And then tell us about your week, Phil. What's going on? What's new?
Not a whole lot. Just work, and I saw Werewolf by Night. You know, that's the big talk of the town with the spooky holiday, and I loved it. As a Universal Monster fan, I thought it was fantastic. I highly recommend everyone try and avoid any spoilers or trailers of any sort. It was a wonderful time.
Yeah.
It was really great.
Yeah, I think that, like, we live in a world where everybody wants to be the first person to post something, or you get excited and so you want to talk about, like, this is why I love it, but not having any idea and going into these shows and movies with no idea is so cool because there are so many incredible things that happen in them that are our favorite characters, our favorite moments that in the comics and things like that. And it's like those are those Easter eggs that they put in there for us. So it's always exciting to go into these shows completely raw and just get like the experiences out of them.
I have this battle constantly. It's probably been for the past 5-6 years where I want to build an online personality like with social media and like TikTok more and do all these things. But then I'm also on the other side where it's like I want to get rid of all of my social media so I can just be surprised by everything.
Yeah.
You know, I can be shocked when I hear something, you know, about something crazy going on. But even like when like the Queen died, it's like every social media platform. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. But like it would have been crazy if I would have been out in public and someone's like, oh my God, the Queen died. And I'm like, what? The Queen died? What is going on? When did this happen? What happened? How did it happen? How old was she? Like, those bits of excitement I don't have as much anymore.
Right, you don't get to experience life anymore. You experience other people experiencing life.
Now I get notifications of the stuff that's going on in the world. So, I don't know. You know, it's tough. But moral of the story, watch Werewolf by Night. Because I need more of that character in the MCU. Yeah. And if those streaming numbers are up, then we'll get it.
And moral of the story is we're going to experience other things for you now and tell you about our experience. So.
But at the same time, the bonus to this, and honestly, one great thing about social media is that you discover things that you didn't know existed before.
Yeah.
TikTok is the one place where I learn about all sorts of new music that I never thought I would hear, where I'm like, oh, I gotta go check this artist out. Here, we're giving you a chance to tell you about things that you may not know You know, sometimes a lot of people don't even go through the previous catalog anymore. And so you miss a lot of those hidden gems. So basically, we're experiencing these things for you, but we're also going out there and doing a lot of heavy lifting for you by being like, hey, here's some really cool stuff that you may not know exists.
Yeah.
Here it is.
We're doing the research so that you can have the fun.
Yes.
So, and not that it's not fun for us too, but...
I mean, it's a blast.
It's the greatest. But let's jump in because there is a lot this week. And like we said last week, everything is going to be a pick of the week this week. We weren't kidding. But there is still a million comics to talk about. So we're going to start off with The Dead Lucky. This is issue 3. It's an Image title. And essentially this is kind of the first book that may be on the Kyle Higgins imprint that is yet to be named at Image. There's a big thank you to Kyle Higgins for editing, and adding notes on this. So I've just been waiting for an official announcement that Kyle Higgins is getting an imprint. But if you are a fan of Radiant Black, you will probably enjoy this because this is the story of a woman who was in the military and she had her squad and something happened. Everybody in her platoon, essentially, except for her, didn't make it back alive. And now she's back and she's dealing with the PTSD of the ghost of her unit haunting her. But she's also using that experience and she is taking those ghosts, both literally and figuratively, and channeling them into becoming a superhero for her community of San Francisco that is being overrun by a government organization that's trying to tell them they're there to fix things, but they're really just kind of making everything worse. And so it's really cool. Has a lot of that same Radiant Black feel of I'm not good enough to be a hero. I'm dealing with this personal emotional struggle. You know, that's one of the things that makes Radiant Black so strong is it deals with these humans experiencing regular human struggles in their midlife, essentially, and becoming something, using that to become something more. And Dead Lucky is another case of let's see how we can channel that energy into something more.
And I am kind of hoping we are getting close to that Kyle Higgins, full on, let's give you reins and see what you can do. Obviously knows how to build a universe. And yeah, I'm excited. I've always been a big supporter of indie superhero stories. You're not confined by, the parameters of the big two, and you can kind of tell your own stories. And so I'm always excited when Image does something like this. It's always great to see those new interesting superhero stories.
And I believe this is the first comic this creator has actually written. I think they were an editor, and this is one of their first actual books being the writer, so that's super cool to see. All right. And then next up from Vault, we have issue 2 of End After End, which you, of course, didn't get to read issue 1, so issue 2 was not one that you were ready to jump in on yet. But this is a lot of that fantasy side. We don't see too much of the fantasy side from Vault very often anymore. We see them, really leaning into that Nightfall imprint and their horror comics. But this is another one of those heavier fantasy stories where you have a guy who gets sucked into essentially a world, like we talked about, those RPG style worlds, those Dungeons and Dragon kind of past lives, and he is stuck in this, and he's being told now in this issue, while he's on this quest that he didn't want to be on, he's being told, hey, nobody else ever has made it out, so maybe you'll be the first one. You seem to be a little stronger than the other people that we've had join us on these missions. And he's like, wait a second, what? Excuse me? And as he's doing this, we're starting to see the cast of characters unravel and learn more about each person. In the first one, it was kind of what's his backstory and how did he end up in this world. And now we're seeing all the people he's paired up with and how they connect and who they are. And this issue I love is called The Everyday China. And they basically say, we're the elite squad. We're the hand-selected best of the best. But at the same time, there's still, the one within the group who's the all-star ultimate secret weapon. And it's she's the fine China. We're the everyday China. We're still the nice dishes you take out because you want to show off. But if we break, you're not really that mad about it. And I love that as an analogy for the expendable team that you're sending into something. It works really well as a nice fantasy like tie-in. So if you're a high fantasy person, if you like those questing games, End After End is definitely a book that you should pick up, and you're only on issue 2, so you can jump in and keep going.
Yeah.
Speaking of fantasy books and gorgeous art, this is perfect for an imagery wine night. This is Nomad, the Unconquerable. This is issue 4 from BattleQuest Comics. This is BattleQuest's first title to launch, and they are coming out with a huge bang. It feels very much like 300 because we have a king who's trying to prove his worth, and you see he's got to go, he's got the strong wife and he's got the son he's trying to train, but instead of it talking about, oh, you have to send the son out on this mission, he has to go out on this mission. And we hear about all the things that he has to do in this place that he has to get to. And over the course of the 3 issues previously, he's been on this journey. And we've seen him battle all kinds of ice monsters and water monsters and people that he thought were in his party that have come along and been against him. And now he's arrived to one of the places that he thinks he's supposed to get to, and it is not what he thought it was going to be. It's been a really, really good story. I love what BattleQuest has done with Nomad. I love how they've created this whole character. I feel like I've been reading Nomad stories forever. Like, this is one of those, if you told me this was a character that has been around for 80 years and this is just another incarnation of him, I would believe you. Like, oh, they just reawoken this Golden Age comic character. I would totally believe that because he's so rich in his lore already and he feels recognizable. But this art, honestly, is the blue-toned black and white that they're doing. It almost has a sepia feel, but the filter is blue, and it really lends to the fact that he's been traveling through this icy tundra. And it really, really highlights the pencil work and the shading that they've done on this book. Like, look at this. This is incredible.
It gives me, because this is one I do want to go back and read, but it's was it John Carter, right?
Mm-hmm. Warlord of Mars.
That's kind of the vibe I get when I skim through these pages. But the artwork on this is beautiful. This looks like one of those books that you'd see at like a con. And you're just like, oh, I really am very interested in this. I also like the blue as well. It's very pleasing to the eyes. But yeah, right out the gate, BattleQuest.
I know, and we talk about that a lot. Like, oh, what is the first book that's going to make, like, this publisher well-known? What is a book that, like, what's their first book? And then it's like, okay, this is one that's going to get, maybe won't get everybody's attention. And then it's like 3 books in, we're like, this one might be their attention-grabbing book. And BattleQuest is like, hey, we're just going to start. And we're going to come out hard. Pay attention. This is a big book. Like, you want to grab onto this and pay attention to this publisher. And they sent us, they actually did not charge. So for Free Comic Book Day, retailers actually buy the books from the distributor. We still have to pay for them. BattleQuest, anybody that was interested in BattleQuest comics, they actually sent 35 free samplers to stores, and we didn't pay for them at all. We got 35 free samplers of their upcoming releases, and I think that's super cool. What a great way to say, like, hey, you guys are gonna be the ones to pitch this, so get out there and talk about it. And I think that was awesome of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that sometimes creators have to do. Mm-hmm. New publishers, they have to realize that, hey, we have to get our stuff out there, and sometimes give it for free, and then in return, people will come in droves once they're like, whoa, now I know this exists. Because I would have never heard about BattleQuest comics if it wasn't.
Yeah, it was really cool because the guy Andrew from BattleQuest was actually in one of my groups at the retailer forum for Comics Pro this year, and he was just like, oh, I didn't get put on like a I'm just new. I don't really know. Like, I haven't really talked to anybody before. Like, I don't know what you guys want to hear about the comics. And I was like, I want to hear everything. Like, this is what I'm here for. I'm here for the comic that, like, nobody's heard of. Tell me all about it. And I'm, like, leaning into my Zoom camera, like, let's do this. Like, whatever you got, I'm here for it. And it was so exciting to hear. And I love how good this book has turned out. Speaking of good books, we've got Minor Threats issue 2 from Dark Horse. This is Patton Oswalt's new book. And if you are a fan of Patton or superheroes or Dark Horse, you will love this book. It's everything that fits into that. But what I love about it specifically is this is the story of a world where superheroes and villains, you know, nobody ever really kills the sidekick of the superhero. You know, you always play it safe. It's like, oh, we're in this epic battle, but we're not actually going to do any harm to the other person. But in this story, in issue 1, a villain has crossed the line and killed the sidekick. Or at least they assume it's a villain, has killed the sidekick of a superhero. And all of the villains are chilling in this bar, and all of the lesser villains specifically are chilling in this bar that's made for villains in like the lower end of the city. And they're like, oh shit, this is going to come back on us. Like, we have to figure this out because all of the superheroes are now rounding up villains. They're rounding up people. They've gone crazy. Like, they're trying to stop the superhero who's trying to kill everybody because his partner has been killed. Like, they're like, we have to do something about it. So now these supervillains have gone on their own mission to kind of stop, like, figure out what's happening and figure out what's going on. And they go to one of the villains and they're like, hey, like, your job is you solve puzzles. Like, he's basically like their Riddler meets the Clue Master, really. And they're like, put it all together for us. And they let him break everything down. And they're like, okay, we've got it. Like, we're following you. We go along. And they're like, wow, you're really good at your job. And then, of course, there's this twist where it's like, maybe something else is going on once again. And so you get this really cool ragtag team of people who are lesser villains that wouldn't ever be included in stories, all trying to figure out essentially who killed the Robin to Superman before it's too late. Yeah. It's a great concept, and it's a lot of fun. And Patton Oswalt's such a great writer, and I know Jordan Bloom writing with, so.
Yeah, also Judd Apatow gave a quote on the front. So if Judd Apatow likes it, I mean, that guy made a bunch of great movies, so if he likes it.
It's true. I mean, it's also a great writer, and we'll see. You know, check it out. Look, not as humor driven as I thought. I thought it was going to be just really punny and really jokestery. It's actually just an actual book. Like, he's not trying to make a satire. Really, the MODOK book he just did. It was full of all the MODOK style jokes. This isn't that. This is just more of an actual straightforward, dark superhero story. Speaking of dark stories, That Texas Blood issue number 18 is back, or is out. And if you haven't read That Texas Blood, I just wanted to bring it just to highly recommend this book. If you have to jump in on volume 1 or 2, that's fine. Or you can jump in on this volume because they do kind of go to different points in the Sheriff Jobo's life. Where it's basically, there's a town. Lots of bad things seem to have happened in this West Texas town over the course of time, and each volume of it has been a different period of time, but it's always had the same sheriff. So, at one point in the first volume, it was the now, and it's him, and then it jumps back, and we were in, I think it was the 70s in the second one, and now we're in another era, and we're kind of just seeing, how the overall world's villainry and things kind of affect this small town, and how we're kind of in a slasher film in this particular volume, so it's really cool to see we've got this serial killer, but he's kind of just like your stereotypical slasher, and seeing how this small town deals with that. And it all takes place in this snowstorm, and so it's really cool to see how Jacob Phillips, the artist, how he hides people in the snow, and how he's hiding he's doing these really incredible slasher movies shots where you see the person sitting there at the table, in a chair or whatever, and he's like, oh, thank you, and it's whose hand is he actually holding, and what is going on, and the way you get to see stuff as the audience, where you end up doing Jamie in Scream, where he's sitting there, Jamie Kennedy's character, he's sitting there Randy, that's his name. I was like, what's the real name of the movie? But he's like, oh, don't do it, look behind you. You find yourself doing that while reading this this arc of this story, where you're constantly no, look behind you, don't do it. And I love that Jacob was able to get those shots drawn into the comics so well. Yeah. So great. If you haven't read it, check out That Texas Blood. It's so good. All right, I'm gonna pull something. I'm going to see if I can mix it up here, because I'm trying to think if there was one. Nope. Oh, okay. We are almost to the number 1, so we'll just keep going. This is Past the Last Mountain, issue 4. This is from CEX Publishing, and this is the specific. There's always more than one story in the Past the Last Mountain story, because it's always the main story and then the war stories. Right. I know you have been reading the regular story. This is the only issue you're behind on the regular story.
Yes.
What do you think of the story?
I mean, it's a wonderful story. You have, we live in a world where fantastical creatures do exist, like orcs and fairies, and things like that. And we have the story of, it's a dragon, an orc baby, or an orc child.
An orc child. And a fawn.
And a fawn, who all decide to escape from this government prison and go on in search of, is it
Dragon Lake.
Yeah, okay. I was like, yeah. I know it's Dragon something. In search of Dragon Lake, which is an area where these fantasy creatures can roam freely. So this is them just on an adventure in a very crazy time in the world. And it's great because you do get the main story as they're making their way towards Dragon Lake, and you get, you know, your typical agents who come in and are like, we have to stop them. You know, this is the only thing we care about. But then also, like Shannon said, in the back, there are these like war stories kind of talking about how we got to this point and some of the things that led to this story, which is just, it's wonderful that they're building out this world.
Yeah, and in this particular issue, we find out about Dragon Lake. We find out a little bit more about what it is and where people have been heading and what's going on with that. But the Orc Girl story in the back, because I know you didn't get to the Orc Girl story. Oh my gosh, it's an entirely black and white story. And it is all about two siblings and how war separates them. And the one sibling is, they were supposed to get this adventureful life and they wanted to do this. And the one sibling, she really just wanted to go on her journey, and the war has stopped that. And so she ends up living this quiet life and thinking that her brother is like lost to the war. And then you see how that impacts her and how that's changed everything. If you want to switch, there you go. Show that Orc Girl story. And you see like just how feeling like you've lost everybody to a war can impact you, and how you kind of change, and how she ends up becoming a different person who is just trying to survive, and what her survival looks like for. And it's just the war stories in these have always just been so beautiful, because it is, what is it like and how does war impact just every kind of different kind of person. But they do it through these mythical creatures, so it feels a little bit, you know, like that fantasy, but it's really actually like poignant and direct on the nose of like, this is what war does to people. So this has been a great series, and I think if you haven't checked out the other ones, we have all the issues, and Past the Last Mountain, you get so much for your money, because you usually get one branch, like one full branch of like issue of the next part of the story, but then you also end up getting like 1 to like 4 war stories in the back, so you're always getting a ton of comic for $5.99.
And the war stories are great because they're all different tones. They bring in different artists, like Casper Wingard, who's an artist that I really love, who did Homesick Pilots. Even he did one of the stories. So it's kind of cool just to, you know, like you said, kind of see how this world has affected other people, you know, and they range from people who are in the war to teenagers, kind of covers the whole gamut. So it is really cool that in these issues you're getting so much and learning so much. I mean, this is an impressive start to this particular publisher.
And all their other stuff kind of seems like homage to like crazy wild out there like 90s and 80s comics, and so this was such a different breakaway for CEX that I want to see more of Past the Last Mountain. I want to see them go further with that because it was such a good story. From Scout, we have By the Horns Dark Earth, which is volume 2 of By the Horns, and this is issue 5. This is the story of Elodie and her like talking tiger friend, and after volume 1, a giant floating eyeball, and they are living in a world of fantasy. And in volume 1, we learn that Elodie's partner, he was killed by, she presumes, unicorns, and so she went on this mission to destroy all unicorns in the entire world, and instead found out that all of the bad things that have been happening are from a dark sorcerer. And so in volume 1, she took on the dark sorcerer and destroyed them, and now she thought she was back home to live her life for a minute, and she has been sent out on another quest because bad things are just going to happen everywhere all the time. And now her village has accepted that Elodie is a fighter, and they should use that to their advantage. And she is on this mission, and she's got her little ragtag team. And I just told Phil, it's like, this is the greatest thing, because a lot of the times this comic gets like super like almost video gamey, and then sometimes it gets like where you feel like you're walking up and you're selecting the person to talk to, and then sometimes it gets like a lot of action and stuff. But and it's, of course, it's super strange, like I said, because she's got a giant floating eyeball. But in this issue, like, she's telling her little tiger friend, like, hey, you can't come with me, like, I want you guys to go back and like be safe. And they're like, look, the tiger's like, look, I haven't left your side. You know, when your husband died, I haven't left your side. When you fought these evil sorcerers, I'm never going to leave your side. And she's like, did you just basically give me a ride or die speech? And it's like, yes. And the eyeball just looks at her and is like, I would also like to ride or die if those are options. I want to be in your family of people. And I was like, why is that so emotional? Like, I was like, how did this become this beautiful moment with a giant floating eyeball? I love this book. It's just one of those, it's always a fun time. And I think it's a great crossover for people who love like manga and video games and comics. Like, this is one of those where it's like it meets all of those aesthetics, so you can kind of all jump in. And honestly, like, last year I was Carmen for Halloween, and there's like this big part of me that's like, what if I was Elodie from By the Horns this year, because she has the coolest costume, and I'm always like, oh, I love her outfit so much. So, you know, we'll see. But By the Horns, check it out. We have volume 1 in trade form if you have wanted to jump on. Or you can order it from Scout, because the people of Fort Myers and all the businesses down there still need your help and support after the hurricane. So if you want to order any of those comics directly from Scout, that is super helpful from them as well. Just be patient with delays, because their printer was flooded out during the storm. From Image Comics, we have Golden Rage issue 3. If you've ever wondered what it would be like for the Golden Girls to be action heroes, I can give you the answer to that question right in this book. We are looking at a society where any woman who cannot have children is deemed unnecessary. And while that's usually older women on this island, like we're on this, society, they usually assume like older women, once they've gone past the age of childbirth, they are all sent to islands. And it's like, oh, we don't need these women anymore. Let's just put them on an island and let them Lord of the Flies themselves to death. And in issue 1, we have a young girl who was sent to this island for the first time. And she's like, well, I had a hysterectomy and they decided I was invalid, so they sent me out here. And she ends up with essentially the Golden Girls. We've got all of the characters. You get a Blanche, you get a Rose, you get a Dorothy, you get a Sophia. They all have different names, but they are 100% just like the exact personality type. So to the point of like, oh, back in St. Olaf, kind of like Rose stories with recipes at the back of the book for like the award-winning St. Olaf County Fair, like pie. I mean, it's a different name for her town, but same thing. And we get to see how the dynamics of this play out, and it has literally become a Lord of the Flies situation where we have the Red Hats, who are the women who kill all the people that come onto the island that they want to get stuff from. And then you have the witch of the town, and you have the death women, the dead women who come and collect anybody that's died and do the burials and all the sacred rituals and things like that. And it's just, there's so much to this book already, and yet I have no idea where it's going, and I love that. I love that there's what happened in this book led us to oh wait, that's like a clue about what's going on, and I was like, it means nothing to me. Like, I have no idea where we're going, and I cannot wait. And then my favorite thing is the back of every book has a giant quote from has stories usually from the Golden Girls. In the very back you get excerpts that, but I love that the back cover always has a quote from the Golden Girls, and they're always hilarious, like out of context Golden Girls quotes, like "eat trash and die."
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Eat dirt and die.
Eat dirt and die trash. Yeah, which is a great Blanche quote.
This is one of those stories that I feel like someone drew two things out of a hat, and or the South Park with the seals or the dolphins hitting the balls into the holes, and it's like, all right, this week we're gonna do SpongeBob and Batman. It's like,
That's a great crossover too. Can we make that happen?
I don't know if I'd want to see that. But I feel like this is one of those ones where someone was like, all right, the Golden Girls and Lord of Flies. Okay, we can make this work.
You can, and it does. It works really, really well. I love the Dorothy character in the book. I was gonna say on the show because I love Dorothy on the show. She's my favorite. But they usually also have they always have a recipe, and then which is a recipe for broadleaf plantain.
Oh, broadleaf.
And then they also always have an excerpt, and this one is from somebody else's story. Yeah. But last time, I think it was an excerpt from Rue McClanahan's autobiography, and then there's also been one from B. Arthur's autobiography. So I love how much they just throw into these books. It's just been wonderful, and everybody should check it out. If you haven't started it yet, it's only issue 3, so you still can. And somebody make all the recipes and bring them to me. Because I don't have an oven, so I'm not going to make any of them. But if you are reading Golden Rage and you're in the Bradenton, Sarasota area, feel free to bring me all the foods that it has in there because I'd love to try them. And I will try them on the live stream and be like, this is the recipe from Golden Rage.
So this is actually, they don't do recipes this week.
Ooh,
it's how to use the broadleaf plantain to make facial toners. There's a lotion bar, facial toner, herbal mouthwash, a bug bite balm. Okay,
bring me all those too.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I'm like somebody who's good at making things with recipes.
I imagine that making soap can't be that difficult.
But I have Chef Boyardee sitting right next to me, so where's my Chef Phil over here?
I follow cookbooks. That's all I do.
Recipes.
I guess that's true. Yeah. Whatever cookbooks my grandma gave me many years ago.
I have lots of cookbooks that I don't have an oven, so again, you have to make me stuff. Issue 3 of Kingdom Come Deliverance from Sumerian Comics, formerly known as Behemoth. I'm going to keep telling you that so you don't feel like you missed something. This is your high knight, super fantasy kind of story. This is the story of 2 kings who one is just, kind of like the drunken, not really doing his thing. And the other is the brother who thinks he should have been king, who goes on. Oh man, that was a lot.
Skipping that.
Yeah, that was too much for me, that page. This is literally, if you think Game of Thrones is violent, don't watch this. Or don't read this. This is that level. This is the action scenes of Game of Thrones only. You have all the backstabbing, you have all of the, this is that level of, rated R kind of violent book about knights and kings. And this particular story for sure, because this follows 2 stories. One of it is it's following the guy who is kind of like the Mountain, essentially, in Game of Thrones. He's the guy that everybody brings in to kill everybody. He's the big assassin, but he's known as the Runt because he was the smallest of his brothers. So of course he has a lot to prove, and he's really excessively violent. And then there is another story of a young boy who's been Father, we have to do something. We need to stand up for our kingdom. We need to fight for our king, and we need to there's nothing wrong with our kingdom, and all of these people are dying. And the father has been okay, gather everybody together. And now that everybody's gathered together, shit hits the fan in this issue, and it's been super crazy. And this is one of those where I'm knights and kingdoms and all the fighting side of all of those things aren't usually, I like the strategy side of it. And this has been all focused on the violent side of it. And then in this issue, there was that little bit of okay, let's look at the strategy in here and how everybody's playing it out. And I was okay, now you got my attention. Where's the strategy going? But that first page, I was oh, that's too violent for me. I'm not going to lie.
It's just unnecessary.
Yeah, Marco says he has to check it out now, though. So, yes, if you want to see the violence and the kings fighting. I also, the thing that gets me every time is the one king is King Wenceslas, and that is a Christmas song Like, and every time I read it, I just start singing the Good King Wenceslas song, and I can't focus on what the comic is actually telling me at that point. I'm like, oh, Good King Wenceslas, let's do this.
That's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I'm always, Christmas songs always somehow circulate in my brain, and I don't know what it is. Up next from Vault is Heart Eyes issue 2. Heart Eyes issue 1, I believe, was either like a pick of the week or could have been a pick of the week comic. I think it was pick of the week. And part of that was just because the entire first issue takes place in a post-apocalyptic San Antonio, Texas. And as somebody who's from San Antonio, Texas, I was really like excited to see how they made a post-apocalyptic monster-filled San Antonio, especially because I was like, I know exactly where they're hiding right now. Like, they were so good at their landmarking that I knew exactly what building they were in, which was super cool. But this picks up where issue 1 left off, and we are following the story of a young girl who has made her way through this monster apocalypse into San Antonio, where all these people are hiding, and a young boy is smitten with her in issue 1. And she kind of wanders off at the end of issue 1 and goes back out. And he's like, oh my God, she can't be out there. Like, the monsters are going to get her. I have to go after her. She doesn't know how dangerous it is. And he goes out there to discover that she's not afraid of the monsters because the monsters and her are friends. And we learn that in the first couple pages of this issue. And then we jump back in time and we kind of see the origin story of our main character and where, you know, Lupe comes from and how she's connected to these monsters. And if you are into any of these monster stories at all, like the way they build her up and the way they connect her to these monsters has just been super cool. And I love it, and I can't wait to see more of where this story goes. This has been just an interesting, like, every time it kind of takes like a new little twist, I'm like, ooh, I like that. Ooh, let's do that. Let's go in that direction. And I love that one of the things that is part of her origin story is it's just trying to, like, some kids come into the bookstore she works at, and they're like, hey, we just wanted to have a book club with you, like, or we're looking for a cool place to have a book club, like, your store seems cool, can we have it here? And then they're mean to her, and she's like, don't be mean, like, my friends are here, like, we can all be friends, and her friends are monsters, and it's crazy, and I'm like, oh man, what if I had a pet monster in my bookstore? Like, this is awesome. And so it's been really cool. I like it. I love this character because she's one of those, like, I don't mean to hurt anybody, but this bad thing keeps happening around me characters. And I love to see how those stories unfold and which direction they go. Because, you know, there's always a point where it's like, oh, did she, like, lose control and go dark and that's why the world is overrun? Or, like, did she not lose control and she thinks she's just playing with everybody? Or did, like, the monsters just get out and she doesn't know how to put them back in? I don't know. I can't wait to find out. Issue 3 is going to definitely bring us to a completely different world all over again, and I can't wait to see what that entails.
I'm stoked that Dennis Hopeless is at Vault. Because he's one of those writers that I've always really liked.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Should start.
Right?
Yeah, it's hopeless.
Right. And the fact that it's Dennis Hopeless is totally a good point, too, because it's... And I love the art on it.
Yeah.
I love the monster designs on there. And there is a point where, like, they show one of the monsters, and I was like, I can see how... no, it's in his next book. Shock Shop. There's one of the monsters where I can see how something is killing the children is starting to influence the way we design monsters, which is a really cool thing to say. But this is issue 2 of Shock Shop from Dark Horse Comics. And if you haven't started on Shock Shop, you may not know, but it is a anthology-ish series. So far, we've got 2 stories in each book, like it's a flip book. And so far the stories are ongoing, but you get 2 stories within your book. So I guess it's more of a flip book than an anthology. But
yes.
What do you got, Phil?
So first off, this is Cullen Bunn. I'm just putting this out there. So that says enough for me. No, honestly, it's really great. You have the 2 stories so far have been pretty interesting. So this first one is about a father who moved into a new house, and it turns out that he may also have some friends of his own that he hangs out with. And so this kind of picks up where that left off. You get a little bit more of who these friends are, and kind of the power that they have, and a little bit also of the main character's family dynamic. His ex-wife, who's also the mother of his 2 kids, her new boyfriend.
Was kind of a douche.
Yeah, I mean, usually the new boyfriend is, but unless you're the new boyfriend. But no, it's just it's an interesting story. I like kind of how it's unfolding, and I like these characters too. Like, they're very like cliche in a lot of ways, but you know, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite of the 2 stories.
Yes.
But I always like the cover on the other one better. And once again, that's totally the case as well. But the second story in the book is the story of a couple that's having marital problems, and to kind of prevent their divorce, they decide to go on a camping trip, which would definitely push me further into the divorce. Like, I feel like if I told Matt, like, we were having problems and so we were going camping, Matt would just divorce me immediately. Like, he'd be like, never, let's just call it what it is. You don't know me at all.
Let's play this game where you go out to the woods and I stay here, and we just say we're done.
And we just call it good. But they go on a camping trip, and they take all of their friends with them that are other couples. And in the night, something happens, and one of them goes missing. And now they're all in this, you know, horror in the woods moment of, like, here there be monsters, like, we have to figure this out situation. And they're like, the friends who are like, we didn't want to come on this camping trip in the first place, are like, let's just get the hell out of here, let's go, I don't want to do this. And they're like, no, we have to, like, the girl's like, but it could be, we have to solve the problem. And they're like, we really don't. Like, this is y'all's problem. It was y'all's problem to begin with. It's not our problem now. And you get your classic, like, horror, like, are we going to make it out of the woods moment? And these are classic. You've seen this story a million times, but it's still fun to see where it goes. You kind of are like, this is probably going to end bad for you right here. But then you're like, but I'm still here. I'm still going to turn the page. I'm still excited to see what happens on that next page, because I love those classic horrors. It's perfect for October.
Yeah, I mean, we're, like, I think I said last week, we're starting to see more horror anthology books. I think, honestly, Ice Cream Man was probably, like, the real start of that, where people could see the success of it. And so, yeah, it's nice to see that. You know, you kind of get these interesting stories. I'm curious to see if Cullen Bunn can balance 2 stories at once.
Ooh, well, they're all short, so...
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Who does the art on Hard Eyes? Not on...
Oh, Ibanez... I want to say Andy Ibanez, but it's a baseball player. Victor Ibanez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marco was saying the art looks cool on Hard Eyes.
It's beautiful. Also, the colorist, whoever the colorist is on this book, Addison Duke.
Shout out. Your colors, your monster colors are gorgeous. Yeah. And again, to that whole creative team, way to nail San Antonio so well in your post-apocalyptic world. Might I have some more wine before I start this? So,
do you want a zebra cake?
Not on the show, but after the show, I probably do want a zebra cake. Phil has an obsession with zebra cakes, and we're here for it.
Folks, I have learned in this world that sometimes you have to continue to buy things excessively to make sure they don't ever go away.
And zebra cakes is the thing that Phil is willing to put that money into, and I'm here for that.
Can I have a Mexican pizza situation?
A Mexican pizza situation to talk about?
I don't want that. I mean, luckily it came back, but I don't want that. You know, I want every business to be like, oh yeah, we got to keep this in stock because there's clearly one person buying it. Like, I want somebody to look at the zebra cake sales and be like, why are the zebra cake sales so high right now? And they're like, I don't know, but it started in Austin, but now it's like...
Now it's moved to
people
Florida.
People in Bradenton are going crazy for zebra cakes. And then one day I get an email from Little Debbie, and she's like, hey, I see you single-handedly have kept zebra cakes afloat. Here's a lifetime supply of zebra cakes.
Well, they wouldn't do that because then nobody would keep zebra cakes afloat.
Well, I'd still buy zebra cakes. I wouldn't stop.
I still have a lifetime supply, but I'd buy more.
But at the same time, like, my Tinder profile just got way more impressive. Like, yo,
Lives of life.
if you're with me, you'll never not have a zebra cake.
I swear to God, if that's not in your Tinder profile, I'm gonna be so disappointed. Fun fact, like, hear the woman in the show say this. Saying that you will keep you in an abundance of zebra cakes ranks way higher than posting a picture of you with a fish. Just saying.
What if I was holding a fish eating a zebra cake?
I'm probably...
But the fish is alive, because I would never kill it.
I don't know which way you swipe on those things, so I don't know how to make a joke that I would swipe in your direction, but in the positive direction.
I think you swipe right.
I don't know.
Positive.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, do what you gotta do. Swipe away. Up next, from Tin Ton Press, which is another one of those comic companies we don't talk about too much. Tin Ton Press is Becoming Frankenstein. We mentioned this at the beginning of this show, but yes, this is true. We mentioned this at the beginning of the show. We are huge Universal Monster fans. And this is actually a really cool classic Victor Frankenstein story. A reminder for those of you watching at home, Frankenstein is not the monster, and yet he is all at the same time, which is the point of the story. But Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Victor Frankenstein is the terrible human who is the monster, not the creature he creates. And this is all his backstory. This is it's him becoming somebody who starts to do his research on bodies that he finds in the ground. This is him working with... This is, like, being a part of the under society. This is him killing, like, being connected to people who are killing people to get what they want. This is us seeing all of the things that made Victor Frankenstein the person who would put a bunch of bodies together to create the human that he thinks would be the perfect human, and playing with life. And so this is really, really super cool story, because you do see in issue 1, we saw a lot of the elements of the original, like, Mary Shelley story, and he kind of focuses on those, and then it does these back and forth. Like, you'll see this one has like 3 different time periods, and there's one where it's like he could be us following the monster, but it also could just be like a Victor who's lost his mind. And so I'm really curious to see if it is actually going to end up being the creature, or if we're going to see a story where, like, Victor never died and he is, like, this madman wandering the world. Because it feels like it's the monster, but then it also doesn't at the same time. Like, because he just had this connection point. They showed a moment with Victor in the past, like Victor and Elizabeth's little sister. And then they showed what you think is the monster, and he's, like, digging up the grave, essentially, of possibly Elizabeth's little sister. And it's like, well, the monster wouldn't have known that. And so it's kind of interesting to see, like, maybe we're gonna, like, see a completely different ending and kind of take us on this different journey. But this is really, really good. If you are a fan of the Frankenstein story and the actual, like, Victorian or Gothic novel, not even Victorian, but I guess fringe between Victorian and Gothic literature. But if you are a fan of those, that story at all, this is a book that you're going to very much enjoy. It's probably going to be one that you also don't see at a lot of stores. I will definitely say that. If it has the word Frankenstein on it, I usually order it for our store. Not gonna lie. So glad I did with this one, because this has been really good. Like, you even see him working in the, like, university in the first issue. You see him connect to different nobility in this one. It's really, really good. If you are a fan of the novel, the Universal Monsters movie, anything like that, you definitely need to grab this book. And this is only issue 2. It's a 6-part series. This is issue 2. Plenty of time to catch up. And it is one of those, like, order off the initial order, not on the final order cutoff. So stores have to order it 2 months out. So if it's something that you think, like, you might be interested in, like, go talk to a store immediately, because they need to get you on that order for the next issue, like, really quickly. But I'm obsessed with Frankenstein, the story. I'm obsessed with the Universal Monsters in general. And so, I'm super...
Is Frankenstein's monster your favorite of the Universal Monsters?
Yes.
I remember. I feel like I remember you saying that.
We just had this conversation a couple nights ago, Matt and I, because we both were like, Universal Monster movie wise, probably if you count it, Creature from the Black Lagoon is the coolest, but it's so much later in the franchise, so it's not like that core of it.
I still count it.
And then Frankenstein counts for me. Like, Frankenstein I love because of the novel. Like, I'm a huge Mary Shelley fan.
Right.
I think that, and I read, one of the cool things is I read Frankenstein a lot in school. I have an English degree, so I had to read Frankenstein more than once in my college career, nonetheless, like my literary career in general. And my teacher for Victorian literature, and like romantic literature, Gothic literature, like she was the same teacher. And she would assign, during Victorian literature, she would assign Frankenstein, but at the same time she would assign, in children's literature, she assigned Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone, because, everywhere else it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which is the stone that Victor is searching for in Percy's prologue at the beginning of Frankenstein. That is actually how he creates the elixir of life to create the monster. So Frankenstein's monster is actually created in the same way
it's
that,
canonical with Harry Potter?
No, but it's the same stone.
So it could be same universe.
So it could be same universe, essentially.
Harry Potter versus Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, man. They wouldn't fight. They're both good guys.
Debatable.
That Harry Potter's a bad guy, it's 100% true. Don't get me started on that. That is a long-running thing that we don't have time for.
If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I've never seen or read Harry Potter.
I know, you've told us that, which is why you didn't know that Vanish was just Harry Potter with a 90s comic filter. And then describe the entire Harry Potter plot without knowing. Yeah, Marco says Frankenstein's his favorite too, 100%. Thanks, Marco. Also, killer Universal Monster series that you have been working on, and oh my god, it's beautiful. I know I've been showing you. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. Like, I can't get over it. Up next from Dark Horse is Survival Street issue 3. We honestly just didn't put this in the pick of the week because we've told you too many times that this is a pick of the week. But
I mean, it's one of those books that just knowing the premise is enough for you to realize this is a pick of the week. This is basically the cast of Sesame Street going up against corporate America.
Like I said, it's the pick of my life.
Yeah. It's a really wonderful book. Basically, each issue... Well, we live in a world where corporations can now be considered people.
Which means they can run for political office.
Yes, amongst many, many other things that you're going to learn throughout this series. And in this issue, they are going to save a group of children firefighters from a wildfire that's spreading.
The reason why there are children wildfire fighters is insane. I read this to Matt from across the room because we have, we've been talking about Dark Spaces Wildfire, which is about how prisoners do fight wildfires. I asked, we have a bunch of wildfire firefighters that shop here, and they actually said that is true in California. They do hire prisoners for a wage to go out and fight the fires because there's not enough firefighters to do it. So they train prisoners to do it. But these are children because of political situations that we won't get into on the live stream, and also because I don't want to ruin the book for you because you need to have that moment where you're like, oh my god. But yeah, so we have children who are prisoners who are fighting fires, and that is quintessential to the story. But the Muppets, felt Americans have come to save them. What happens, Phil?
I mean, everything that you would have expected in a rescue mission. I don't want to give it away, but, they go and try and save some kids from a fire, and shit gets out of hand, and there's an ice cream truck randomly in the middle of a wildfire.
Which if you've been reading Survival Street, you know how that's a danger, because we do have the dessert fiend as one of our Muppets. We also bring in Milo. First appearance of Milo the Muppet, who talks about himself in third person. Milo says, this was a good issue.
Yeah, he's an interesting...
He's Elmo.
Yeah, he's Elmo, but it's almost like if all of the Sesame Street characters left and went back to reality. He stayed the star.
Yeah, and we've had...
He's the Justin Timberlake of the Sesame Street characters.
And he's the one who says, oh, well, it doesn't matter if the environment is bad. I can still get one kid to feel positive, like I'm still doing something good. And they're like, hey, yeah, but you're working for the terrible people. And he's like, but I'm trying to do a good thing through that terrible thing. And they're like, are you really? And he's like, Milo will do what's right. And seriously, he's just Elmo. He talks in the Elmo voice. I read the entire thing in Elmo's voice. And I was like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Milo's world. Like, I'm going to get sued now because I just did that on live stream.
I think you're under the...
10 seconds?
Yeah, under the 10-second mark. I think you're fine. The one thing that I really like about this book is that you're sitting here kind of like laughing at the absurdity of it all. And then there's moments where you're just like, oh man, this hits too close.
Scary.
To home. So it's great because there is a message. There are messages in each of the issues. But it kind of makes you step back and be like, this would be funnier if it wasn't too close to how reality is.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is such a wonderful book. I remember when Dark Horse was started doing promo stuff for it, I was like, this is going to be one of the best books of the year, easily.
And it is.
Yeah.
Just wait for that hardcover that's going to kill Phil.
I'm excited. It's Dark Horse. They always do those wonderful, beautiful hardcovers.
It's true.
Always.
All right, we got an ending this week. The British Paranormal Society, issue 4 from Dark Horse. This is the end of this. This is part of the Hellboy universe, but if you've never read Hellboy, you're not going to be lost because it has absolutely zero to do with Hellboy. I am still really, I feel like they have to put that tagline on anything that's, slightly connected to, the British Paranormal Society is words that were used in a Mike Mignola book, but now it's they don't actually have anything to do with it. But this is a story of 2 detectives who work for the British Paranormal Society that are on different missions in the same place. And they end up working together to kind of uncover what is going on in this small town where one guy is investigating the disappearance of his former partner and the other one is the woman who is investigating these weird ley line kind of situation. And so they've come together and they've kind of end up in the middle of this crazy cult experience. And this is them unraveling that and explaining to the cult, hey, you're following a crazy person. maybe move on with your lives, and kind of just figuring out that mission. It feels like the first couple issues actually kind of felt like, what is the movie that's part of the Cornetto trilogy? Hot Fuzz. It kind of felt like that because they're just oh, the kids, they're doing this thing, and oh, these people are doing this, and you get all the weird characters who are just moving about the town, and it's are they actually is there a cult or is this town just weird? What's going on in this society? And you get that kind of feeling from it, and then they solve their mystery and they move on.
It's interesting to look at these pages and see that it's Andrea Muti art. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's typical.
Watercolored.
It's so different from his normal art style, which is kind of cool to see. I like when artists kind of branch out, but yeah, very interesting to see
what it looks
very
like.
Different because his normal art style that you see is a bit more rough. Mm-hmm. It's a messy art style, which I do love. So it's cool to see, some more, cleaner pencil lines and stuff like that with this art.
I actually started reading this book I ordered this book just because Andrea Muti was on art, and I started reading it for that reason, and then I just fell for the concept, and I thought it was really good. So if you, it doesn't look anything like Andrea Muti, but if you are a fan, you can still see the classic.
I didn't show this page originally because there was an ad. I tried to avoid the ad pages, but this page right here, that's some really solid pencil work. Mm-hmm. Very solid pencil work. Yeah. I think it's great.
And this is done. This is issue 4. This is it. I've never read Hellboy. I've only ever read all the randomly connected from the universe of Hellboy books. I know I need to read Hellboy. It's one of those holes in my comic world. But I love that these, like, all these little random pieces. I love all those pieces. And honestly, like, between you and Chris Sheehan, who, if you don't know Chris Sheehan, artist of the Autumnal and House of Slaughter and amazing things. Happy birthday, by the way. Chris just celebrated their birthday this week. If you don't know, like, they always are like, you should check out, Hellboy, and like Mike Mignola's art is a big inspiration, and I can totally see that in Chris's art. And between the two of y'all, I'm always like, I just need to go back and read all of Hellboy, because y'all two have really, like, made me think that I need to check it out. Well,
so one of my all-time favorite comic book characters is in the Hellboy universe. It's not Hellboy. I love Hellboy to death. Lobster Johnson.
Oh, right. I ordered you that master set.
It is like classic pulp adventures. It's wonderful. It reminds me of, the spirit and the shadow. It fits all into that. But, he also plays with Abe Sapien and Hellboy and all these really great characters. It's wonderful. I do love it. Mike Mignola is, top tier comic book creator of all time. Hellboy, I think, if you can sit down and really do it, I'm actually going back and doing the full Hellboy universe read, where you start with Hellboy and then you do like BPRD and it kind of branches out. So I'm trying to do all of it, but it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff.
Good luck. Let me know where I should start.
Volume 1 of Hellboy.
Okay.
Yeah, I would start there.
All right. We've got a ton of number ones and then a ton that made the 10 picks of the week. So, we're going to start with, from Comics Experience Publishing, CEX, we have a one-shot, which is called Vox. And this is the story of, really, honestly, it's the story of how, if somebody tells you the same thing over and over again, and you hear that, like, message over and over again, eventually you're going to believe it until it drives you mad. And this is a young man who's kind of in the political sphere of this imaginary, like, world, which kind of feels a lot like the Grecian Roman Senate, but with mythical creatures. It's kind of like taking the one from Thor, Love and Thunder and the actual, like, Roman Senate and blending them together, because it's all the different gods and things like that. But this is a man who is a part of that, and he really wants to be a part of it. He's kind of like almost a page within that Senate, wants to be a part of it, and in the process of it, he meets a woman who says she is Vox. And the society has decided that Vox is a cult of people who tell you, like, oh, you're going to hear the voice, the true voice, but whatever your voice, they're just crazy people on the street. But what he discovers is that language has become a barrier to us more than it has become a help. And we end up, in society, we've come to a point where everybody is, whether you're speaking the same language or not, doesn't matter. Like, they're all speaking the same language, but the problem is that everybody's tone has changed, and everybody's meaning, and the way you use this word versus the way I use this word has put us in a place where nobody can actually agree on anything. So all anybody does in this book is argue their point, but nobody's listening to the other person, and nobody's learning anything from the other person. They're all just arguing their point. To the point where this character is driven mad from the idea of, like, I just need to explain to people that we're all saying the same thing, but we're all saying it differently, and we don't trust the other person's opinion enough to listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it, that we're, like, it's driving him mad. And it's a really interesting concept done in a really weird way. It was such a, like, I was like, I don't really know, like, where this is going when I started, and I don't really know what we're getting into. And then towards the end of the book, I was like, oh, we are just making a point. Like, this whole story is just making a point. Really interesting one shot if you're this kind of is another one of those, if you're interested in what, like, CEX does as a publishing company, this is definitely a good example of, like, that weird, like, let's take a fantasy world but just put a real world message into it in a way that's very apparent, but still kind of a fun, like, mind melting story. So,
and it is
it's one shot. Yeah, so you can jump right in. This is Rabbit Hole Studios.
Yeah.
Which is a publisher we've never talked about, and I probably need to go back and make sure I even ordered issue 2 of this, because it's already probably passed for issue 2, but this is The Lost Gardens.
Yes, I was excited. I always, am interested in seeing a new publisher that we haven't seen so far. And so this is the story of we live in a world where robots do a majority of the work, and pretty much from this first issue, everyone's a robot at this point.
Seems like it.
And this is in a world where all the robots need upgrades and repairs, but nobody can afford it. Very, very accurate to the modern times.
Yes.
And so in this story, it's great because it starts with this girl who writes a letter to this giant company called the Ministry, and says, "Hey, I understand that you get all these letters, and I can't afford it, but I'd really appreciate it if you would help me get this new upgrade so I can go back to working the job that I can't work because of my malfunctions." And then you're introduced to the guy who responds to those letters.
Yeah.
And his whole job is pretty much just saying no, I can't help you.
Like, he accidentally says yes one time, and it's like, we will fire you if you ever say yes to another request again.
You're just costing us money.
Yeah.
And in this first issue, you find out that now he has a malfunction. And just like everyone else, he can't afford it.
And he's like, but I work at the Ministry and I do all this stuff, and they're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, you have two options. You can either wait until you come to a point of destruction, or you can figure it out.
Yes. And so you're kind of getting a little bit, seeing a little bit of the world and the characters that are being built. Like there's a protester that goes out and she's like protesting for all the robots that can't get upgrades, and you get to see his boss, who's a real total asshole. But then at the very end of the issue, he gets on a train and goes somewhere where we don't know. And yeah, I mean, to me, this was a really great first issue.
It's a really great first issue.
It kind of, with some of the like social commentary, kind of made me think of like Not All Robots, in the sense of like, hey, we're gonna show you this very interesting way to look at something that's going on in the world now.
Yeah. If you took the satire out of Not All Robots and just left the message, you would get this book.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, this is just kind of the start of it all, and we're about to see where this guy goes.
And I'm going to mention this, and I know it might be kind of like branching out spoiler, but I love that what his malfunction is that he can see what is actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
And so we learn that, like, oh, we've upgraded the world, but, like, have they really? And I love that that's the malfunction, because I feel like that's going to come into play in a really big way for him, is, like, is it worth fixing? Like, have you woken up out of the Matrix? Like, kind of situation. And I want to see if that's the direction this goes. And I wonder if it will end up being more Not All Robots or more Matrix in the end. And either way, like, I think it's a great concept. And I love that this is a wraparound cover.
Oh, yeah.
Just to show that. Like, that's super cool. Because you don't see that a lot from small press publishers. You don't see that wraparound cover a lot, because it's a hard thing to drop into a file. So I love to see when they do that. But up next, I don't know if you know that Top Cow's really like seeing a resurgence as an imprint at Image. Dude, also, like, I love, they actually have an ad. Mark Silvestri ran his own ad for his DC book on the back of this, because of which is 2 DC ads on the back of Image books this week, and I don't know how I feel about it. That's another conversation I'm not going to have on the live stream. We're just going to sip that wine, Kermit style. Thank you. That was beautiful. Phil doesn't even like wine. He's really just trying to make a point right now. But here we are. We have Revolvers #1. Tell us about the book, Phil.
Yes, this is the story of a cop who's bad at everything but being a cop. And this follows what you are perceived to be his last day on the job. And it kind of unfolds about him and his partner, and him and his bad abilities of being a husband, or I guess his inability of being a husband, but also, them going after this drug lord and kind of seeing that all play out. And then, of course, when things hit the fan, we're introduced to this kind of this new aspect to the book, which is a revolver. This revolver that may or may not have magical powers. It may or may not be tied to evil. We don't know. It's just a gun that can do some pretty cool stuff. I liked this first issue. I kind of like how they laid out the story in a sense of kind of sort of showing you the end and then going through and showing you the lead up to how it got to that point. Because he's very vague in the beginning of it's oh, this is my last day on the job, and you're okay, what does that mean? But I really liked kind of how this story unfolds. There's some things that honestly I wouldn't didn't surprise me with it being a Top Cow book, but I think I can get over those things. It's little things that I don't really necessarily need in a comic. But at the same time, I did really this stuff's cool. The bad guy skins people. It's, it's what you would expect from a Top Cow book.
It has a 90s overtone.
Yes.
But we are in a 90s resurgence.
We are.
If you've been to a Walmart, all of the women's fashion is 90s clothes. And I'm going to say it. This is my chance to be cool again. I don't know. I'm waiting for this moment to happen. I was waiting for the 90s. I remember when... in the 90s when the 70s became cool again, and my mom was I hate it, and I'm I can't wait for when the 90s become cool again. You know what? I'm here for it. We're seeing a lot of the 90s come back in comics right now, and this is definitely, the resurgence of Top Cow alone is a 90s moment in and of itself. But I like a lot of the modern twists that they put on this 90s comic. That's what it feels like. It's you took a 90s comic and you modernized it. And you're kind of hitting in that let's talk about whether we're fighting demons or whether we're fighting humans or whether humans are demons. You kind of bring all that into it. It does have the feel of the Vault book that you liked. That with the people who fought, had to fight in the afterlife and the
Heavy.
Yes, the Heavy kind of has a feel like that, where it's you have this crass cop who is I'm going to end up in this situation. You have this crass character who is just going to end up pushing towards that. It's kind of one of those let's blend weird situations that I'm we might have gone too far, we might not have gone too far, let's figure it out. This is kind of in that same vein for me, which I enjoyed that book too. So
yeah, I liked that one probably a lot more than this, just because. But yeah, I can see what you're saying about kind of that route that it's going to take.
It might go in that direction.
This is a book that if I removed all the things that made it obvious that it was a modern book, I feel like I could put it into a stack of 90s books.
100%.
And someone will be oh, I don't ever remember when this came out in the 90s. But it's I do think that's cool.
The 90s are here again. And if you miss 90s Image comics, they're all here. They're back. In fact, last week Matt came up to me and said, did I dream that Brigade came back out, or did that really happen? I was it really happened. And he was there was a new issue of Brigade. And I was there was a new issue of Brigade. You did not dream that. That was a real thing that happened. The only thing that hasn't come back yet is Youngblood, honestly. Union hasn't come back. But we did have Shadowhawk.
Shadowhawk
already came back. Yeah. With the last Shadowhawk. Wildstorm, all of Wildstorm is coming back this year.
Midnighter.
DC is doing a thing. They actually have. Do you remember? And y'all do, but if you at home are watching this, if you remember the raised foil covers,
I still buy those.
Those embossed raised foil covers, they're all coming back. There's a Batman one and a Joker one that I ordered today.
Heck yeah!
And they are literally called 90s homage covers. So this is a thing. We are actually DC has. November is 90s homage cover month at DC. Just so you know. So if you've been waiting to have your 90s moment, 90s Homage Cover Month is coming at DC in November. So 90s November, whatever you want to call it. I'm only going to wear 90s clothing for the whole month of November. My Doc Martens are getting pulled out of the closet for the month of November. I'm here for it.
Also, I want to put this out there, here and there. There are other bands from the 90s besides Nirvana. I'm fucking tired of seeing all these young kids who've never heard Nirvana, except for maybe one song, who are walking around wearing the t-shirts. There are other fucking bands from the 90s that also kick a lot of ass. Go out and discover those bands and stop just wearing that one Nirvana t-shirt.
There's a new Bush album out, if you wanted to know. Came out this week.
Oh
Bush,
my God.
90s band.
I was just listening to that album today.
The new album? I haven't heard the whole album
No,
yet.
no. I was old school Bush
Like
today.
16 Stone?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I went
great.
through the first 2-3 albums of that.
That's fantastic. I will gladly listen to Bush every day. But seriously, Bush has a new album out. Let's all just marvel at the greatness of that. And Smashing Pumpkins just played here in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
They played 2 days ago.
New album in April.
A new album in April. Yeah, the
Smashing
90s.
Pumpkins?
Yeah.
Double album. Follow up to Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Is it really?
I think it's a triple album, actually.
Okay.
Fucking Billy Corgan. That guy, I swear to God.
Yes.
I'm here for it.
Marco said so much good music in the 90s. Marco, what is your favorite 90s band? And anybody else watching this live or on YouTube later, please tell us what your favorite 90s band is. Because
comment with the 90s
because
bands.
that's my, again, this
Hanson.
is... don't you joke. Hanson is why Matt and I are together.
No,
So,
I've seen Hanson multiple times.
okay. Literally...
Middle of Nowhere is one of the greatest pop albums of all time.
It's one of the greatest pop albums of all time. And
Get past Bop, there's
yes.
bangers on that record.
That is such a good album.
Yeah.
We will have an entire live stream just talking about Hanson. I promise you someday. Because that is literally why Matt and I are together. Up next from Dark Horse is Leonard the Vampire. This is a one-shot. Kind of? Sort
Maybe.
of? Possibly?
There was this weird thing this week with supposed one-shots where at the end they're like, is it the end? Yeah,
I was like, no,
there
it's
could be more?
one-shot. You are the end.
Also, is this in the world of...
No,
okay,
but it has the same Hellboy font, and I was very...
And it's Mignola. So I was kind of curious if this was another one of those. It doesn't fit with the theme and vibes of Hellboy.
But
the themes it does, but vibe, the art vibe is different. No,
the art vibe is 100%
you know what?
Hellboy.
Never mind. I could see this being in the Hellboy
I
universe.
was very confused. I had to check 4 times. What's it about, Phil?
So this is one shot of a small town who finds a casket in a shipwreck and opens it up, and a adorable little girl comes out, and they all celebrate in this tavern that this little girl is here because their town has suffered a lot of curses and bad things, and everyone really wants something good to happen in this town. And it's this little girl.
And congratulations, this little girl is alive.
Yes.
And you know how that goes. Because this little girl is alive because she's a vampire. I love this little girl. Yeah. I was like, I'm here for it. Little girl, let's do this. Let's vampire all over this town. I am always going to be in favor of your vampire book. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
And I just like how very easily swayed people were by her. And she was just so calm and cool about everything.
Yeah.
You know, even there's a priest that busts in and is like, she's evil, and she's like, guys, it's all just
that's adorable.
Yeah, guys, do I look evil? No, I'm not. Don't worry about it. This was a really, really fun one shot for me. This was actually one of those ones where I was kind of like, I could maybe throw this in the pick of the week. Because it was fun, and it does say at the end that there could be more of this.
Please do. Please do, Dark Horse. I need more. Pick it up. Let's do this.
Yeah, because this...
it's very Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
Like the classic, Ichabod, cartoon, Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really like the art style. And I'd like to see more. I think we will. I think this is kind of one of those scenarios where we get a one shot to introduce the character, and then eventually, because the title is not the little girl.
No.
So there's this whole other character that we haven't even
met yet.
We haven't even met yet. So I think we'll definitely see more, maybe a different name for the title of that series, but yeah, we're gonna see that world open up a little bit as well.
Yeah. Ram, what was your 90s grunge and what was your new metal? I want to see that. And Marco said Pantera. Notice they started in the 80s, but they really became Pantera in the 90s.
Yes. I really liked for grunge, like Mudhoney. What was the band that they covered? There was Mudhoney and Meat Puppets. Meat Puppets kind of started in the 80s as well, like late 80s, but came in. But yeah, there's a lot of great grunge out there. Again, outside of Nirvana, there's a lot of really awesome music. And the grunge scene was really great for a good, 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So, yeah.
Agreed. And you were, what, 2 when that happened? Just kidding.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Okay. I didn't hear Nirvana until I was in middle school.
I mean, me too, but that's when they came out.
Yeah.
I was in middle school when they came out, so... Earth Divers, issue 1. This is the Kill Columbus. Honestly, I told everybody this week my favorite thing was that Maria Wolf did a cover for a book about killing Christopher Columbus, and I was like, I love seeing a Native American artist doing a book about how we need to not acknowledge Christopher Columbus.
Well, this is cover B.
This is the A cover.
Is it?
I think so.
This is the
That's
Ralph
the A cover.
Albuquerque cover.
That's the A cover. IDW calls all of their covers variants. On the pink one, it's very confusing.
Weird.
But they label the artist on all. I actually really enjoy that they label the artist on all of their covers.
Yeah.
But also still give it an A, B, and C because Marvel only labels the artist but doesn't do the A, B, and C, and then they change it from the order period, and I can never match people's pre-orders to what they actually ordered. Okay. Anyway, this is the story of people who realize that we've screwed up, and the entire Earth. The whole world is destroyed.
But where's the issue? Where's the issue lie?
America. The entire world is destroyed, and it's because America messed it up. And they pinpoint the problem is Christopher Columbus. And so they find a cave that allows them to go back to a point in time. And this man decides he is going to go back to the point where Christopher Columbus sailed for America, and he is going to kill Christopher Columbus. And this is the story of a man trying to do the time travel thing and completely messing it up from the first moment he speaks.
And the thing is the only reason he gets sent back is because he can speak the language. He's a linguist.
He's a linguist, so he can speak 8 different languages, but he forgets that he's supposed to when he gets back, and he speaks English immediately and screws himself over.
Yeah, when I heard the concept for this book, I was like, that's so stupid. There's a magic cave that lets you go back into time wherever you want to go, and you've chosen to kill Christopher Columbus, who didn't actually discover America.
He did not discover America. Let's all be clear that Christopher Columbus...
Killing Christopher Columbus may not actually solve the problem.
It won't solve any problems because he did not discover America at all.
But you know what? I actually really enjoyed this issue because you have the guy who... You get kind of a back and forth between this guy who is dealing with knowing how to tie a knot because he's trying to impersonate a sailor and he can't even do basic knot tying. I
love his memory of the person trying to train him on that for when he went back in time, and he's like blah 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 blah, not blah 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 blah. And I was like, that would be me if I went back in time after somebody trained me on something. I'd be like, and then they said something. What was it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna die. And he's just the whole time he's like, I'm gonna die. Cool.
And so you have that, and then it bounces back to the other part of the team, which is his wife. You kind of have your science-y computer person, and then you have your muscle kind of sort of. But it's great because they're bickering the whole time. The whole time he's gone, they're just bickering about the dumbest things, you know, like that. They're using. It's funny because like they're using like history books from middle school to get all of their information.
I mean, who doesn't?
I haven't looked at a textbook in...
I worked as a tutor, like I ran a tutoring center, and I literally was constantly like checking the textbooks to see what, like, as my argument for things. So people on the internet would be like, well, according to this, and I'm like, actually, middle school textbooks don't even acknowledge that. So see, we're doing a terrible job teaching our kids these things. Like, I was constantly like, we missed the mark on that. Here's what we said.
I don't know if I believe my middle school textbook.
You shouldn't. That was my whole point.
Oh, I see.
They're wrong.
I thought you were saying
no.
That was your best source of knowledge.
Sorry, I'm trying to say...
I didn't hear the sarcasm.
There was sarcasm. I'm trying to say, without referencing specific points in those middle school textbooks, that they don't actually teach any history at all accurately. There's a whole thing that they definitely cover all of it wrong, and they just like erase things from textbooks. I mean, let's talk about people who watched Watchmen and didn't know that there was the Tulsa massacre. Like, we're not teaching history at all.
Oh no, it's very like you pick out the pieces that you want to tell. You know,
no, it's
America. America.
And I was like, now it's my turn to drink wine.
Yeah, it's a good book though. It's IDW, which we don't see a lot of IDW.
But they're doing their new wave of independent titles because they are losing a lot of their IP, and so they're trying to do the independent. The IDW Creative is their new imprint, essentially, where they're launching all of these titles.
You know what I really want to do? I was thinking about this the other day while I was laying in bed. It was my day off the other day, and I was like, I wonder what old IP I can go out and afford today.
Oh my God, did you find something?
I didn't.
Oh.
Everything is quite expensive because they were talking about, I was thinking about like the old Harvey comic book characters like Casper the Ghost. And I was like, I wonder who owns those and how much they are. And like all those Harvey characters, someone bought the rights for like $150,000.
That's it? You got the rights to Casper for $150,000 and Wendy the Witch for $150,000? Wow.
Yeah, it was like a surprisingly low number, but still where I was like, okay, no.
Out of our price range.
Yeah, but I was like, I wonder if I went to a bank and was like, hey, I want to buy the rights to this character. Can I borrow some money? No, they're gonna. So I can.
They're
just
not. They're
own the rights.
They're gonna
laugh
laugh
at you. Do anything with it. I just want to say. Like, I own the rights to this character.
I would love to own the rights to Casper. Do you get Devin Sawa with that? Because he's super cool.
I would assume you get the whole universe.
Yeah.
I'd assume you get everything in the Casper world.
Yeah. This is from CEX. This is another one-shot. This is Egged. Another one of those one-shots where I was like, not probably going to be a one-shot. What happened, Phil?
So this is an issue about a couple who are at the grocery store. And they're kind of playing around with each other in the parking lot. And the girl throws an egg and it hits another car. And it kind of kicks off this like weird conspiracy theory style adventure. Where basically the guy who gets his car egged believes that these people are a group of people called eggers who first egg your car and then follow you home and murder you. Is what I got.
That is the premise, yeah.
From that, and I was like, that's a weird, crazy concept. And so you kind of get this girl who's like panicking a little bit, and then is like, okay, I guess I need to go take care of this situation because there's this guy out there who
is gonna dox us because we're throwing eggs, and then she might be like something that's trying to hide who she is.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of mystery in this issue, but at the same time,
no questions are answered because we may be setting up a new series.
It has to, because by the end of it, like there's a big reveal at the end, and you're like, okay, you're not gonna end. Like there's no, you didn't resolve anything in this issue.
No,
so it's definitely not. But I do love the art style. I like the absurdity of this book. Like I'm hoping this is one of those books that kind of does like a Fast and Furious, where it's like as the story progresses, it just gets weirder and more absurd and really out there.
Do you think they'll drive an egg through the nose of an airplane?
Stop. Just stop. Please. If you want to sell me all of your books, that is what I need.
That is what you need.
But yeah, this was fun. I like the art style. I like the world that they're setting up. I like the couple. I love how the whole time she's like, "Oh my God, he's just gonna break up with me. Here it comes." And he's a sensible, reasonable human being. Who's
like, "Hey, you egged a car.
Yeah.
Who cares?"
Yeah. It's just like, "Hey, we're in this together with our dog Snooper." The dog's got a really stupid name.
I think it is Snooper.
I think it's Snooper. Yeah, I think it's Snooper.
And then the whole thing is like, as long as us and Snooper, it's like me and Matt, where it's like, no matter what, it's me, you, and the cat.
Yeah.
Like, in everything. From Black Caravan, we have issue 1 of Something Juicy. Yes. Which also actually is listed as an issue 1, but feels like a one-shot.
Yeah, to me, like, I read this and I was kind of getting anthology vibes.
Absolutely.
But I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I feel like I don't know if that's considered movie. I definitely feel like we could continue this story as well. But this is the story of the popular girl in school. Is really good at being the popular girl because she knows how to get dirt on every student and basically can ruin every student at any moment with one bit of information. And so in this issue, she sneaks into the house of a girl named Patty, who she nicknamed Patty the Fatty. And so she is trying to figure out how Patty was able to steal her boyfriend away from her. And so she's in the closet and discovers that Patty is no longer a fatty. Patty is skinny. And so she wants to know why. She's like, oh, there's got to be some like crazy way that she was able to do this. Like, it's got to be fake. Maybe she got liposuction.
She's reading Patty's journal is the whole thing in Patty's closet because Patty has come home and she is trying to hide while reading the closet.
Which is cool because I do like that they kind of do the art style with the notebook along there. Like, I really like that they do that. And it's got like the typical like scribbles and everything like that. And then you just kind of find out that
the story along the way.
Yeah.
How did Patty do it? We find out.
Gets real wild. That second half of this issue just kind of takes a weird turn, and I'm here for it. I'm fully on board. I really hope that this is a series that it continues this story in particular.
Yeah.
Because it gave me like Eraserhead vibes,
yeah,
and like the same feelings I got when I saw Eraserhead, where I was like, this is unsettling and creepy. And I need to know more. Like, I need you to kind of unfold this world. So I'm on board.
And if it's an anthology that also stays that way, I'm totally fine. And Marco said, can't wait to receive my copy. You got to support my Black Caravan brothers. And if you know if it's going to be an anthology and you can drop that in the comments, or if it's going to keep going with the story, that'd be super, super cool.
Yeah, I'd definitely be curious. I feel like it's not an anthology just because the main character even makes the comment where it's like, I always have something juicy about everyone.
Yeah.
So the only way I could see it being an anthology is if each issue is her finding
something juicy about each person.
Right, and it kind of going off in that weird kind of suspenseful thriller style. But I enjoyed this first issue.
Absolutely enjoyed it.
Black Caravan.
Right, we're always in for anything from Black Caravan.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Up next from Oni Press, Pink Lemonade #1.
Yeah.
The amount of times I turned this book around and pointed it to Phil and said, oh my god, this spread. Like, it is really what I have to say most specifically about this book. Like, this is one of those, like, high dynamic art, like, books.
Yeah, this is this is the 2-page spread that sold me on this book.
The first page.
Yeah, like I opened it up and I was like, okay, cool, I'm intrigued by what this is going to be. And what this is a big mystery. But imagine there is a crackhead homeless person that wears an adorable helmet and has a moped with her, and you're totally okay with her being around
your children.
Yes, around your children. Because in this issue, she has this weird, trippy space dream and then wakes up and is like, I don't know who I am, but I bought pink lemonade from this little girl, so she named me Pink Lemonade. And they find her sleeping on a bench in the park. And they're like, hey, come back to our house and watch cartoons with us. And you're like, what the fuck? They're like, oh, come back and we'll eat mac and cheese and watch this funny old school cartoon. And then it just kind of leads on this, like, adventure of her being a hero. Like, she's maybe a superhero, kind of like an old space adventure hero.
But she doesn't really know, and she might just be copying the cartoon that she saw, which is the only memory she has.
Yeah, like, she has no idea. But she's also kind of, like, hallucinating as well. So you're like, what's real and what's not?
I have no idea. I was just here for the crazy art and the weirdness of the story. The weirdness of the story is actually like a big selling point to me because I was like, I have no idea, and I'm in for that. I'm in for the idea of not knowing what the hell is going on.
It is because I want to know, like, is everyone in this world just, like, bizarrely clueless?
Yeah.
Because I would not approach a woman sleeping on a bench in the park and be like, hey, I have mac and cheese at home if you want to come and have some mac and cheese.
I feel like you might.
No.
I was like, I feel like that's like a good, like, standard film moment. Like, yeah, I've got mac and cheese at home.
Like, yes, at first, I would maybe be like, oh, excuse me, ma'am, would you like to have some mac and cheese? But the moment she starts talking to her motorcycle, I'm like, forget that. I don't want you to know where I live and sleep at night because you're talking to your motorcycle like it's your best friend.
And she has the eyes on her helmet. Like, that's not her face.
Gotta
that's
be
her
terrifying
helmet.
in real life. But it seems to be the one thing that, like, people are like, oh, she's got this adorable helmet. I guess she's an approachable, likable person. But I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. The absurdity of it. I love the art on this book. I like the very great, wonderful potential that could come out of this. Just off that first 2-page spread. Because they're like, oh, this is a dream that I keep having. But it's like, oh, I really want to experience that. But also, too, just to kind of like, this could go nowhere also.
It could. Who knows? And it's Oni Press, so I have no idea where they're going with this. Yeah. Yeah,
but it's packaged really well. I love the colors. It kind of gives me like Mike Allred art style vibes. Yeah. So I'm here for it. I'll definitely keep going. This was another one of those where I was like, pick of the week. But then also the absurdity of it, I was just like, I don't know.
Might not be for everybody.
These people are too trustworthy of this woman.
And also,
who carries lots of cash.
But also, like, I want to be friends with out of all of the characters, I want to be friends with the mom who is obsessed with the cartoon and, like, writes her own comics for the cartoon. Like, I don't know if they're the official comics or if they're just, like, fan fiction comics.
I think it's just fan fiction.
The mom, like, walks into her room and it's, like, every piece of merchandise and, like, every IP or everything from this IP of this cartoon, the mom has it, and she's like, you really need to watch the cartoons on the original VHS because that's how they were intended to be watched. And I'm like, I love this mom. I want to be friends with this mom. I don't know how I get there, but she's the character I like the most in this book. Last number 1, 3 Keys, Image Comics. This is David Messina, who has been an artist previously, doing like everything on a book. And there's a lot with this book. So it is the story of like this key to this mythical world, like save the day kind of thing, broken into a bunch of pieces, given to 3 different people. And one of those people is Noah. Noah is the one of the chosen ones, essentially, who has this.
She's a descendant of the person who crafted this sword. But yeah, basically it's like in a universe where there's a parallel universe called Dreamlands, and there's a bunch of giant gods that roam it, and they're trying to break into our world and just kind of wreak havoc. And this is going to be the story of like introducing these descendants and that carry these 3 keys, and kind of prepping them for what could potentially come down the road. Yes. If shit hits the fan. But yeah, this first issue follows Noah, who works at a comic book store and likes to party and drink and have a good time, but also train for what's to come.
Yeah. And I definitely has a lot of promise for where we're going to go with the other characters. I actually like whoever the other person, like they call it the cousin, might be this other descendant. I like that other descendant who is like
a badass.
And following Noah, we're gonna do it. I think there's just this. The one thing that was like an initial turnoff if you read this book is nothing in the book is satire because it is all fantasy. But there's this scene in the comic book store that the rest of the book, we both talked about, we like the rest of the book, but the scene in this comic book store kind of shut us both down, and it's the very first thing that happens in the comics, so it was a little hard to get past, because it's Noah and her friend, and they're working in the comic book store, and they're kind of picking on everybody in the comic book store. For being nerds. And they're like, well, we don't really read the comics. Like, maybe I should read a comic someday. And they're like, why would you do that? We're just hot girls here to sell comic books. Like, we don't read the comics. And it kind of, like, both Phil and I were like, oh, this kind of turns us off because, like, to that initial moment, because that's how you start the comic, and I'm like, I don't like this character now. Yeah, like, because it was hard to get into the character.
Because you're immediately taking jabs at, like, all the stereotypes. Like, she basically makes the comment that, like, all comic book readers are fat, nerdy dudes who can't get women. And all the women in the comic book stores just have boobs and don't read comics. Like, it just immediately, I was just like, okay, I hate everything about this book.
Yeah, it was hard to get past that. And then you were like, keep going, because you read it before me, and you were like, keep going, because the rest of the story is kind of cool. But just know that like happens at the beginning. And I love that you warned me for that, which is why I'm warning everybody reading it. Because as a girl who literally reads every comic book that comes in, who orders all the comics, who owns a comic book store, and who also has boobs, I'm sure you've noticed, you have eyeballs, I have boobs. But I also read every single comic book. And it was hard for me, like, it's hard when people make that joke, and we talk about that, like, oh, are we perpetuating our own stereotypes? You know, like, are we like, oh, the problem is like these are, it's like, are we laughing at ourselves, or are we making it so that other people from the outside can laugh at us and then get into the thing? Like, where does this fall? Because as long as we keep saying it, everybody else is going to keep thinking it. Like, that's my philosophy. Like, if we keep saying girls are only in comic book stores because that's how you sell comic books, whether they like them or not. I mean, there's literally, and this is hard for me, there's literally a book about owning your own comic book store that was written in the 90s. This is a legitimate book that was made in the 90s about how to own a comic book store that said, get women to come work in your comic book store because guys will buy comics because women have boobs.
It's still a mentality to this day, but because my issue with this, and I hear this all the time in other aspects, and one thing that really comes to mind is Buffy. People, when they're like, oh, you've never seen Buffy, I'm like, no, and they're like, oh, well, you have to get past the first season for it to get really good. Caveats like that make me not want to watch it. So if I bring this book to someone and I'm like, hey, look, the story gets really good, but you kind of have to get past the, like, down talk towards this industry and the people in this industry, and you kind of play on these stereotypes that aren't really a thing anymore. If you see people who come, there's a lot of beautiful people who are nerds. Like, it's not just fat bearded dudes and women read comics. I know women outside of Shannon who read more comics than guys. I sat in here yesterday and there was a guy in here who's like, I have like 200 comics. I've never read a single one. And then there's women who come in and who are like, oh my God, I've been reading this and this and this is great. I love this. And it's like, I don't want to have to tell people when they come into the store, like, hey, what do you recommend? And I'm like, this one, but, you know, get past the first, like, 5 pages, because it may trigger you.
We're 51% of the comic book demographic now, like, just so you know. We are 51% of the buying demographic for comic books. And I'm, like, at the same time of, like, oh, I'm offended on that behalf. Like, don't, you know, like, women, hey, get past it, like, it's a cool story. I'm also offended on the other half because there's so many men who also don't fit into this. Like, you're not the Simpsons. It's not the Simpsons anymore. Like, it's not comic book guy. It's like everybody who wants to read comics can like comics. And when we do that, it makes people not want to like it. And so I'm against the jokes at the beginning. I like the premise for the book. I think we didn't need to start with that. I think it really kind of like shoots itself in the foot because there's going to be a lot of people that pick it up and feel like it's making fun of them. In the same way a lot of people start watching Big Bang and feel like that's making fun of them. And situations like that, I think that when we have that, like, I can't tell if it's making fun of me or if it's like, oh, like, it's funny because it's true. I'm putting that in quotes because it's not true, but it's funny because it's true kind of situation. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who are going to read these first 5 pages and aren't going to keep going. And it's a shame because the rest of the book is really a good concept. But I think it's going to get lost by those first few pages that no matter which side of the fence you're on, whether you're a guy in comics or a girl in comics, you're going to feel like it made fun of you. And, like, I kept trying to look up and see if there was a reason for it. Like, you kept trying to find that.
Yeah, you started doing, like, back history on, like, the writer. You were like, I wonder if, you know, this could be satire, this could be a joke.
Yeah, it's like, where does this fall? Because it's not really, it wasn't necessary. There was no reason for it. And it doesn't add or take away from the story. It has yet to prove to be anything influential to Noah's story at all. Like, you could have just had Noah be a cool comic book story. And it's like,
you didn't have to have Noah's job in here based on where the story. Like,
but if you are gonna do it, like, it's like, are you trying to differentiate her from Elle from Crossover, who is also somebody who's dealing with monsters coming from another world, but Elle's obsessed with comics? Like, were you trying to differentiate that? I don't know, but it wasn't necessary. Yeah. And I feel at this point it's almost detrimental to her character because I don't want to cheer for Noah.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, I'm not rooting for somebody who's like, oh, I work in a comic book store, but I think everybody that shops for comics is stupid. I'm like, well, I own a comic book store, and those are my favorite people in the whole wide world. It's the people I meet every day. And the people I get to talk to. Like, my favorite part of the day is having somebody come up to the counter and going, I read this book. It's amazing. I'm also specifically holding up Pentagram of Horror because if you read Pentagram of Horror, you do think it's amazing. But, like, people who are like, oh my God, did you read this? And, like, want to stand at my counter and talk to me about books. Like, that's my favorite part of the day. And that's the whole thing, is that these people come up and they're like, hey, do you know about this book? And they're like, oh, we don't read comics. Comics are stupid. Only, like, fat, lazy people read comics. And I'm like, no, everybody should read comics. Comics are amazing. When somebody comes up to my counter and they're like, I can't think of the name of this comic, it's kind of this and this and this, I'm like, that's this comic. Let's get it. Let's talk about it. Let's deep dive. Did you read it yet? Do you know about it? Oh my God, I'm not going to spoil it, but here's everything about it. And so it was a little, those first 5 pages or the first couple of pages where we see that really cool paneling that's almost Yannick Paquette style, that's necessary. But then when we go and see this job, it's not necessary. Could have cut that whole thing out. Just pretend those pages don't exist and keep going in your story. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I would say that if you kind of like those, like, unlikely hero stories, you have that in this. This could be the book for you. But, you know, I'm just concerned that people are going to read that first half and
miss it.
And then say, you know what, maybe I won't pick up issue 2. Yeah. You know, there'll be that bad taste in their mouth. So hopefully, I don't know, I would definitely like to talk to the creator and be like, hey, what was your thought process here?
What were you going for? But if you are just looking for a really cool, like you said, reluctant hero, like, chosen one situation, keep reading. Because the rest of the story is good. You just gotta get past that.
I mean, you alienated your entire audience.
The entire audience in the first 3 weeks.
I just want to know who's the editor of this book? I'll message the editor too. I'm gonna message a bunch of people. Oh, it's Syzygy too.
Oh, come on, Chris.
Let's see. Chris Ryle.
Chris Ryle was the editor. Chris, you've been in comics forever. Come on, man. What's the deal with that? Yeah. I gotta know. Now I'm here. I gotta find out. All right, we got some picks of the week. I need some more wine. Oh my God, we've been on this show for like 2 hours. Of course, I need more wine. We're gonna go to talk about our picks of the week. Of course, I'm gonna start with the most important, amazing, wonderful book I finally got in. Which is the last issue of Pentagram of Horror. This is issue 5 of 5. This is a Black Caravan book. It's fantastic. Marco, yes, it is your turn. Marco said it's my turn. It is your turn, Marco. We are here to talk about why Pentagram of Horror consistently remains a pick of the week. Open it up, Phil. Just open it up and you'll know why it remains.
I'm not even going to tell you the premise of this issue because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's a wonderful premise. I really love the story in this issue. But it's just fantastic. It's also a silent issue. There is not a single bit of dialogue in this entire book. And you don't need that because really, honestly, word bubbles would just take away from how fucking beautiful this book is. The character design in this, the dude in the metal mask, just looks fantastic. You know, he's cutting up a human.
Also, Marco said earlier that Frankenstein is his favorite Universal monster story, and you can see that with this story in and of itself. Yeah.
This is just, it's beauty.
Marco, you're flexing all over this book. This is such a fantastic, the art on, oh my God, every page. I'm like, Phil, show that one. Why aren't you showing that one?
Because I don't want to like spoil the whole thing. I don't want to show all the goods.
Yeah.
Right? I just want to show a little bit of it, maybe a couple of spreads. But, I mean, this is what comics are. Oh gosh.
Like when we talk about how like art can tell the story of a comic book, this book is just proof of that. You don't need words because the art does show the story so much. And Pentagram of Horror has been a great use of the medium in showing both like how you can use the word and art blend, how you can use the art on its own, how there's so much can carry
this is one
and
of my
speak. Oh my
favorite fucking pages right here. The room full of heads, but they all have the open mouth. Marco's art. I really love King Jira. It's a fun little book, but like his art style lends so perfectly to the horror genre, so perfectly. I mean,
Marco says this particular issue took a lot of time. He wrote and rewrote it so many times. It's masterclass in art right here.
Yeah. And again, like, honestly, I got done with this issue and I was like, man, I really want him to expand on this character. I really want him to I want to know more about this masked dude. Tell me his story.
There is not an issue of Pentagram of Horror that I have not read at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Like all of them, I finished it, I went back and I immediately started it again, and then I waited for you to read it, and then I read it again after you were like, oh my God. And all of them have been that way for me, where I've just been like, I need to just live in this world for a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, my ultimate goal is Mondo posters of Marco's work. I just need screen prints of beauty of this work because it's absolutely phenomenal. And seriously, Pentagram of Horror it's an anthology. It's 5 issues. You can pick up any of them. There's so many times where people come in and they're like, I kind of just want something horrific but with really cool art, and I'm like, stop talking, just take this. Like, we're good. You just need this.
And not to say that any issue is less than the others, but that first issue Like, the 2-page spreads in that first issue.
With the guy chained. Oh my god.
Like, that really set the tone for this series.
And the writing on issue 4 with the story with the sheriff.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the story behind that and the idea of just your own demon like chasing you essentially through it was just such a good written story. And then you add in the art. Like, this has been a stellar book all the way around. Like, series becomes a pick of the week. Not even, like, in each individual issue has been a pick of the week, but all 5 as a whole.
I feel like when we sit down and talk about our end of the year...
You called that on issue 1, too.
I did. I mean, you know, I will always say that art over story. Like, you can sell me a book with beautiful art and a mediocre story, but you can't sell me a book with an amazing story and mediocre art. It's not possible. Art always oversits the story, but this gives you both. And each issue, I was like, can all of these be 5-issue miniseries on their own? Like, let's take each of these and expand it outwards. So, Marco, all I have to say is, keep making books, but I need you to always have a horror book in rotation.
Yes.
Like, do whatever other stuff you want to do, but always have a horror book going at the same time. Which I know you said the next book is going to be body horror, so
yes.
I mean,
I'm in.
Keep going. You're doing a wonderful job. Easily one of my favorite creators in the game right now.
100%. Absolutely. Speaking of artists making books, we have Kaya from Image Comics. This is issue 1, and it's Wes Craig.
Yes, Wes Craig, who did the art for Deadly Class, a really wonderful book by Rick Remender.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't read Deadly Class, I highly recommend you.
It's still going.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It is still going. So if you haven't read it, you still can.
Wow, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is Kaya. This is the story of a young girl with a mechanical arm and her younger brother Jin, who their home has been destroyed, and she now must take her little brother across this universe to, I believe they're going to the monk. I believe what they said is he's going to a monk, and he's going to be trained to basically, help his people come back. If I remember correctly.
He's supposed to be the king, essentially,
yes.
of the people, if he makes it there.
And so, in this first issue, they come across an empty town and run into the Lizard Riders, who are kind of like the bounty hunters of the desert in this world. And you kind of get to see their interaction with the Lizard Riders. And the wonderful thing about this book is the relationship between the brother and sister, because it's very much that relationship that you would expect. Like, he's kind of like a little brat. He thinks he knows everything, and he also keeps reminding Kaya that he's a prince. He's like, you can't treat me that way, I'm a prince. And she's like, yeah, to who? Who are you a prince of?
We don't have a people.
Yeah, there's no people for you to be a prince of. You need to stop being a brat.
I am the older sibling of a little brother who, I'm just going to say it, Mom. I know you're probably watching at some point, but let's be honest. He's the favorite. My little brother is hands down the favorite. We've established this for the last 30 years of his life. And this felt like me trying to keep my little brother safe the whole time when he was a kid. Just being like, well, I'm the favorite the whole time. And I'm like, nobody cares. Like, who cares? We're all going to die. And she's like, I was like, this would be me in a post-apocalyptic world with my little brother. Like, nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares if you're the favorite. You're still going to die like everybody else if I don't save your life. And I'm the responsible one, so deal with it. And he's just like, yeah, but like, I'm still the favorite. And it's like, okay. And like on her back, like she's literally carrying him on her back because he won't walk on his own. And I'm like, oh my God. Sorry, little brother, if you're watching, deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was an older sibling, but it was a far enough apart in age to where, it was more of like I was a teenager when they were in elementary school, and we were so far apart in age that there wasn't a lot of.
Yeah, we have a 9-year difference, me and my little brother.
Okay, yeah, about the same. I think 10 years. Yeah, 10.
Golden child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same.
Yeah, know how I feel. Also, Marco just said that it's 5 a.m. there, but he's up just to see us talk about this live, essentially.
We appreciate you, Marco.
Yes.
We appreciate you. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. There's a lot of information kind of thrown out at you. It's one of those where there's a world being built here, and we got to throw a bunch of names at you of people you don't really take notes of some of these names, but like they say, like the Atrians are the people who kind of destroyed their world. But I feel like this is going to become one of those books that at some point there's going to be a map at the beginning or end of this issue.
Yes, absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, this is where they are, this is where they've been, these are different providences ruled by different people. Because, I mean, there is a lot of different conversations that are had here where they mention different like groups and tribes of people. But I do really, really love this book. Wes Craig tells a beautiful story to start with. Like, I'm already in love with the main character, Kaya. Because she's like that very protective older sister, but she's also like snarky and has a lot of lessons to learn, because it's one of those where it's like, hey, we have to shove you into this adult experience that you shouldn't be ready for, but we kind of have to put you in this world. And then you just get this magnificent art. I mean, Wes Craig is just such a talented human being. And I'm always a fan when artists kind of start writing their own stories. Start writing their own stories. And I think this is one of those where it's like, let's build this world outwards. Give me everything. Give me mini-series. I think it's going to be a wonderful book. I think this is one of those that could potentially be Eisner nominated.
Oh, yeah.
Potentially.
We'll see. Yeah, I could see it going that way.
Yeah, same.
So that's one of your favorite artists making a book. One of my favorite artists is also making a book this week. Scott Snyder and Frank Avila have a book out. It is a thick book. This is one of Scott Snyder's comicsology books printed through Dark Horse, and this is Night of the Ghoul issue 1. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that Scott Snyder and Frank Avila had a book coming out that wasn't a Batman title, I lost my mind. I am a huge fan of both of their horror work. Scott Snyder's Witches is one of my favorite books of all time. I actually have a Jock Mondo poster of it. And Frank Avila is another one of those things Matt and I bonded over in like our first day of talking to each other, because we both loved him as an artist. And this is just a great blend of those two creators working together. This is the story of a guy who lies his way into a facility to talk to a man who was a great filmmaker and who made a zombie film, essentially, a film called Night of the Ghoul. It's a horror movie, and that movie was hidden away from the world, and all of the pieces have been burned apart, and you can't find the movie. You can't find the movie anywhere. And this man and his son have hunted down as many pieces as they can to kind of piece together the story of this movie, Night of the Ghoul. And they have hunted down as well the creator of this movie, and the guys, they've come to interview them. And of course you've got that point where you've got the dad who's got nothing but this going on, and he's trying to use it as a way to connect to the son, and the son's a teenager who's like trying to text his way out of the situation, like, I don't want to be there. And we learn that there's something deadly in regards to watching this movie. This is one of those, like, you didn't watch the tape, did you, kind of stories. Which is at this point, a classic horror tale. Which is crazy to think we've reached the point where did you watch the film is, that's like the Ring concept, and now that's already considered a classic trope in horror. because we see it so much. But this is that trope. Like, but you didn't watch the film, did you? And he's like, yes, I've seen it all. Nigel says, is that a British World War I soldier in a horror comic? Yeah.
Yeah.
You do see that.
You get the interviewing of the filmmaker, but you also get to see the bits and pieces of the film that he has. So it does bounce back and forth, and it does this really great thing where at the end of it does show the kind of like ripped film reel, which is super cool.
Nigel just said with Francavilla art. I was going to say, Nigel, don't act like you don't want it just for the Francavilla art, because I know you and I know you do. But yeah, it is. It's a World War I film about a ghoul that also leads us to this story in the modern time. And yes, I will definitely put aside a copy for you, my dude. It's great. The Francavilla art is classic. If you're a fan of like the Afterlife with Archie, you get the same color palette, you get that same kind of style. And Frank is just an absolute horror master. Francavilla he's just become one of those names synonymous with horror. Posters, like comics, things like that. And Scott Snyder. I mean, we know we love Scott Snyder. We've been here for it, and putting those two together. And this is an oversized issue. This is multiple issues of the Comixology. I believe it's 2 issues of the Comixology story put in one book.
Part 1 and Part 2
yeah.
of this story. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be fantastic on every level. You know, Scott Snyder, one of the best modern comic book writers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I loved every second of this. I loved both parts. I love the concept of kind of like this old movie that needs to be seen. Because that's one thing that's always interesting is when people go out and they find these like things that existed that aren't complete, and they become so enthralled and fascinated and kind of obsessed at a point. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. And honestly, out of all the horror books that are on the shelves right now, I feel like this is one of those ones that you have to pick up.
Absolutely.
Just because of the creative team alone.
Absolutely.
And of course, it's Dark Horse, so hopefully at some point I'm going to get a very nice hardcover.
They didn't do one for We Have Demons. It went straight to trade paperback. So the Comixology books might not go
I'll make
to
some calls.
Hardcover. And then you make those calls because you're going to be like, I'm on the show at Bat City. And they're going to be like, Bat City, those are the people that ask for trade paperbacks, not hardcovers. I'm sorry, I screwed you over. It was me. It was all me. I'm sorry. I specifically asked for trade paperbacks. And then I remember I actually came to you and said, I told Dark Horse I wanted trade paperbacks and hardcovers, and you yelled at me. You were very upset with me because I said that. And I was like, but people like trades. And you were like, I don't, Shannon. I want a hardcover. And we had a fight about it. It's our only fight on record. I'm sorry.
I forgot about that fight, but now I want to have it again.
We can have it every day forever because I stand by my statement.
But get Night of the Ghoul, it's going to be one of those that as it progresses, you're going to hear more and more people talk about it, and you're going to be really disappointed you didn't get in now.
And much like We Have Demons, this is just Scott Snyder showing us what comic books are supposed to be with an all-star team.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, yes. Marco, please do move here. We're here for that, and we'll be here when you're ready.
You can do a signing at the store
that's what started the conversation.
Okay,
is Matt said, come here and do an event. Marco said he wants to move to the U.S., and we're here for you. When you
at the beach.
At the beach, yes, we have beaches. We have the #1 beach in the continental U.S. Right down the street if you want to move here. Saturday Morning Adventures, IDW presents TMNT.
I was gonna do the song, but then I was like,
why? Once again, don't want to get sued.
Yes. So this is IDW has said, you know what, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been so successful. We have a big event coming with the Armageddon games. Why not bring back? Because they've done this before. Archie Comics was actually the original publisher who put out the animated series version of the comics. Now IDW is doing it.
And they did it with G.I. Joe first.
Yes.
They actually have the G.I. Joe
Yes.
Saturday morning. So this is the new thing at IDW to do the Saturday morning adventures where they bring back the cartoon version.
Yes, and so you're going to get kind of the same vibe as the cartoon. And in this first issue, you get the turtles cannot train because there is a horrible rainstorm in the area. And so Donatello is like, hey, I've actually created this really great VR game that we can use to help us train, and then we'll get sucked into it, and it'll help us master everything we need to know, be able to use our brains, all sorts of stuff, and it'll give us everything we need. And of course, they're like, yeah, but there's a huge storm out there. What if there's like a power surge? And he's like, I've already have fail-safes in place for that, and those fail-safes don't work.
You know that the second Donnie says that
Yeah.
he's planned for something, it's gonna go wrong.
Yes.
I love Donatello, he's my favorite, but it always happens.
And so, yeah, you kind of have them going on this adventure. They play a bunch of different games. You kind of get to see a lot of classic video game references, as well as a ton of TMNT characters sprinkled throughout this, especially on the villain side of it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this gives you everything you would want as a Turtles fan, as a fan of the animated series. I mean, this just hits every point. I'm sure there's some old people out there who probably don't like the VR concept because it's too Gen Z. But look, you gotta tackle that new audience. You gotta get that new audience of Turtle fans, like the ones who go see the new movie that comes out next year, and they're like, man, I really want to read more Turtle stuff. They discover the cartoon, and then they can get into this. And it's great. I really like it. I think it was a great first issue. It just excites me for everything that they're going to do with this series.
Yes.
I need all of it.
I had a lot of fun with it. Marco says, time to go to sleep. Thank you for staying up to see us talk about, I know you're in Italy, so thank you for staying up to see us talk about Pentagram Horror, and 100% we will always support you in your projects. And then, yeah, to Ninja Turtles, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It felt like watching an episode of the cartoon. If you brought the cartoon back right now, this is what it would feel like.
Yeah, most definitely.
And also, I was disappointed that I didn't have any pizza while I read it.
Yeah, I actually went home and ate pizza.
I don't have the ability to make pizza in my house, so I need you to bring me pizza!
Oh, for a second, I don't know why I thought it was Chris Burnham.
Oh, it's not.
It's Eric Burnham. I wonder if they're related.
We'll find out. You have to do the research. I did the research on the other thing. It's your turn.
I'll see what I can do. But yeah, Turtle fans, you gotta have this book.
I love it. Ram said turtle power, and Matt said he says that like 5 times this issue, and Ram said good old Leo. And it's true.
Yep. Yeah, you get those tropes, you get those wonderful things. You're like, oh, I remember that, you know.
Even with the games, like when they bring up the games, I'm like, I know which game you're actually referencing.
Yeah.
And I haven't played a video game in a million years.
Yeah.
So for me to know which games they were referencing, I was like, ooh, I don't feel old, but I am. So, yes. Marco said, can we have a crossover between Ninja Turtles and King Ghidorah? Hell yes. Yes. I mean, I guess you and IDW can determine that, but I am 100,000% in for King Ghidorah and the Ninja Turtles to have a crossover. Please take my money. You can have it all. I don't really have any money, but I'll order all of it for my store. Oh my god. Yes.
Draw turtles and send them to Kevin Eastman.
Yeah, seriously, if you told Kevin Eastman, he'd probably
Oh
be
my
in.
god, could you imagine Marco doing the Turtles?
I'm
Art-wise.
gonna die.
That would look so cool.
I might cry.
Commission time.
Okay, Marco, I don't have money. Let me preface that.
I have 0 money.
But when I do, I want you to recreate the cover of issue 1
Oh my
in
god.
your art style. That would be the
Turtles.
coolest fucking thing. Yeah,
Like the Mirage.
The Mirage, that original classic Turtles cover in Marco's art.
Whew.
I'm gonna cry.
I know, we're all gonna cry. We have a Ninja Turtles rug in our store.
Start now.
Says it.
Take
me,
like 5 years.
That might be how long it takes for Phil to get the money ready.
And I will raise the money.
We're gonna have a
somehow.
GoFundMe for Phil to afford this commission.
I will do whatever I need to do. I'll start mowing lawns.
Right. Matt's like,
I'll pick up a paper route.
Matt's like, me too. Let's do this.
We'll go 50-50 on it.
We don't have to share it.
We'll hang in the store.
Well, and then we'll just take turns, like, staring
Yeah, but then like, I'm doing extra work.
Your house 2 months.
That's
store
fair.
for 2 months.
Okay, that's fair.
It'll be great. I don't care because either way I get to see it. So
it's like National Treasure. You pass the thing around.
It'll be great. On exhibit now at Bat City Comic Professionals. The last pick of the week, I'm not gonna lie, Josh came down to the store and was like, so there's this book that's out this week. I assume it's Shannon's pick of the week, and I haven't even read it yet. And I was like, what is it? And it was like, it's called Dark Ride. It's from Image. It's written by Joshua Williamson. And I was like, all of those things say yes, it is. And then I read it. Hang on 2 seconds. Marco said, I'm doing that right now, honestly, with the Brig King Kajira silhouette in the background. Stay tuned. I'm going to cry. Shut up. Shut up. I'm going to cry. I can't. I've had way too much wine for you to talk about these amazing things.
And the great thing about being an artist is you can do shit like that, where you can just like be like, you know what, I'm going to draw the turtles and King Jira together, eating pizza.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love pizza. I love King Jira. I love the turtles. I'm going to cry.
I had pizza yesterday, but I want pizza again.
Hungry House tomorrow.
Hungry Hours tomorrow. Yay.
For dinner?
Yeah, let's do it, family.
I just ate pizza.
That's
All right,
okay.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right, let's talk about Dark Ride. This is issue 1. This is from Image Comics and Joshua Williamson. And this is, honestly, I didn't know this until I read this issue. Joshua Williamson is a huge theme park fan. It literally said when he gets stuck on books, he starts designing rides for theme parks. Makes sense.
Great.
Guy wrote 100 issues of The Flash, wants to go fast. Makes sense. But this is the story, essentially, of what if Walt Disney had designed a horror theme park instead of Disneyland. And Joshua Williamson said, I'm a huge Disneyland fan, I'm a huge horror fan. I thought, let's mash it up and see what would happen. And I am a huge Disney fan, and I am a huge horror fan, and I am a huge Joshua Williamson fan, so I was like, you did it! You nailed it. This is, it starts with the backstory of the Walt Disney-esque Arthur Dante, who, of course, Dante being both a Disney reference and a hell reference at the same time. He wants to create the perfect theme park. Everybody says he's never going to do it. He creates a horror theme park. And now we fast forward to a point where a young kid is coming to work at said theme park and is the ultimate fan of this theme park. And while he's on his first day working in custodial work, he gets to meet the 2 children, which means we get to meet the 2 children of Arthur Dante, who are named Samhain and Halloween. I'm not joking. Those are literally their names, Samhain and Halloween, which is, you just named your kids the same thing. But you have these 2 kids, one who has chosen to run the business and the other who has become a social media influencer. And they are at odds at who should get control of the parks and how to save the parks in the future, as something new and exciting needs to happen to make this park bring life to a new audience. And we are following this custodial kid who just happens to get mixed up in their drama immediately, and his experience on his first day in the park. And Phil, what did you think? Because you also said immediately after reading this is your pick of the week. So
yeah, I mean, Joshua Williamson is a writer that I put a lot of faith in, just because he wrote 100 issues of The Flash.
That were all good.
I read those 100 issues and was like, this is amazing. This is a great job. Like, you have written one of my favorite Flash runs. And I also am a big fan of theme parks. I love going to them. When I lived in Austin, I would go to Six Flags as much as possible. There were years where I had like season passes Just 'cause I like riding rides, and the idea of one that is purely horror, because I mean most theme parks, all theme parks do like a Halloween.
Yeah, he references Not Scary Farms and Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah,
at the back of the book.
And so, like, those things do exist, but to create a theme park that is purely horror is such a great concept. And, like, I want to see where this goes, especially, too, with how this issue starts. I'm not even going to say how it starts, but It kind of gives you, like, the origin of Arthur Dante, and, like, you're like, oh, there's some...
Is that the statue? Yes. Okay, so my Disney friends, I'm going to interrupt, but this is literally a ripoff of the Disney statue where Walt is holding Mickey's hand that's at the front of Disneyland and Disney World. So this is 100% just that statue. You showed it on the thing. I had to interrupt.
But yeah, that was the gist of what I was... I mean, it's one of those, I think the art's really great. This is just one of those books where, like, everything about it together is solid.
It came together perfectly. And we were talking about this last night, Josh and Matt and myself, we were talking about this because Josh was like, I still haven't read this book, but I need to read it because, you know, I'm very excited, but also, again, I feel like it's just a Shannon staple. And like, to the point where the variant cover was done by a Mondo artist. If you need to know how, like, yes, this book was perfectly designed for me. And I was like, it absolutely is. My aesthetic is abandoned theme parks. Like, I have an obsession with abandoned theme parks. Most of the, like, pictures on my phone that are not of people I know are of abandoned theme parks. Like, I really just love them. And so the idea of this horror theme park, like, this is Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps kind of stories for adults.
Yeah.
And it's this is a book made for Disney adults. Like, Disney adults, there's so many references to Disney in here that you're going to love it. There's so, like, if you're a theme park fan, you're going to enjoy the theme park references, but specifically Disney people. Like, Joshua Williams even says in his letter, he's obsessed with Disneyland, and he was always like, what if Disney would have been obsessed with horror? And if you go back and on C+, they have all the behind the scenes of the rides, and they talk about the Haunted Mansion when they made that ride, which is hands down one of the best rides at Disney. There's no argument. We're not going to argue that. We're just going to say that that's one of the best rides at Disney. And there's that whole thing and, like, how they try to make it scary and all the different things they try to do with it. And it's like Joshua Williamson saw that and was like, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. Let's just make the whole thing horror. And let's see what would have happened if Walt would have been pursuing horror instead of family fun. And this is... Like, they even say, like, oh, should we make it more... Like, you have to make it more family-friendly to make people come. And it's like, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. Like, you're fired. Like, that's a stupid idea. Why would we ever make it more family-friendly? And so this is for the Disney adults, which is an entire category of humans on the planet. This is your book. And if you ever thought, what if you mashed, like, Halloween Horror Nights and at Universal and Disneyland together... You're going to get this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be... I feel like it's going to be one of those ones where maybe, like, the first few issues could all potentially be picks of the week.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
All right, we're going to do this. You ready? We had a lot of books. They came in. Here we go. We're going to talk about them as fast as possible. DC versus Vampires, issue 9 of 12. This is James Tynion and Matthew Rosenberg writing a book about vampires in the DC universe. If you are fans of Deceased... honestly, this kind of brings that same emotional story mixed with ridiculous, like, over-the-top vampire story all together. You get another great moment with one of the Wonder Twins in this. Gotham City Year 1. This is Tom King. This is Tom King's new, like, almost Elseworlds, because all Tom King books are Elseworlds books, essentially. This is another one that kind of follows Sam or Slam Bradley as he investigates a mystery regarding people in the Wayne family pre-Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
So, really good. It's Tom King. You're not going to know what's going on until issue 9, let's be honest. Junior High of Horrors. This is the annual one-shot from Keen Spot that follows Michael Myers, Jason, or as they call him, JV, and Freddy, who is the cat of Nancy, which I love, as they just kind of live their lives and go to school and deal with some bullying situations in this one. And I love that Laurie is Michael Myers' sister in this issue, just for those who want to experience that. This is Superman Space Age, issue 2. This is Mark Russell writing a Superman story with Mike Allred on art. This is pretty much everything you could want in a Superman story. Edge of Spider-Verse, issue 5. This leads us with 3 new Spider characters. And honestly, if you're a speculator and you didn't buy Edge of Spider-Verse, you made that mistake last time too, and look at how that worked out for you. Tim Drake's Robin, issue 1 came out. We technically last week, we got it in this week. It was on the wall. I forgot to pull it for you. I'm sorry. I know. It's in your box. It's just not in your hand. Okay. Batman. Do you want all the covers or just the one cover?
I mean, I'll take all the covers.
Okay.
Let me look at both covers.
Okay. I don't know which covers.
Because there's 2 of them, right?
Yeah, there's at least 2. It's DC. There's at least 2. Yeah. Batman Audio Adventures. If you ever wondered what, like, the radio dramas of Batman put into a comic book form.
They're great.
Human Target's finally back. Issue 7.
Wow.
That Tom King story went on a very, very long delay. We are back. This is the Art Germ variant. The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing. Matthew Rosenberg writing a Joker story. Another one, because he did Puzzle Box. So I guess this is another Matthew Rosenberg story. X-Men's, this is the X-Men's one-shot. So if you're following Avengers, X-Men Eternals, this is the X-Men one-shot that goes within that. X-Men Red is also out. This is issue 7, but it is a tie-in to the Axe story. Action Comics 1047. This is the Harley Quinn anniversary issue, but just so you know, Superman is returning. Superman has been in a world for a long time. He's finally coming back. Sword of Azrael, issue 3 of 6. Yes, I got you these. Don't worry. Time Before Time, issue 17 from... this is if you liked Looper and you're not reading Time Before Time, you're missing out on the comic book version of Looper, essentially. Mandalorian issue 4 is out with a Peach Momoko Grogu cover.
Oh, boy.
Lose your mind. Everything you need at one time.
Crazy Star Wars fans.
You will. You did all week long. King Spawn issue 15. Can you believe we're on 15 issues of King Spawn? That's insane. Savage Avengers 2099. This is issue 6 of the Savage Avengers series that's going on right now. Poison Ivy issue 5. All of the Poison Ivy covers have just been gorgeous. And G. Will Wilson writing a story about Poison Ivy trying to destroy the world because we destroyed it first. God, I love her. Sandman. This is A Nightmare Country. This is James Tynion. This is issue something. 7? 1? 1.
Issue 1.
Then I grabbed the wrong one. We're on issue 7. New Fantastic Four issue 5. Jane Foster Mighty Thor issue 5. I'd love to see Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor. This is not Jane Foster as the Mighty Thor. This is Jane Foster working with Thor.
Oh.
Marauders issue 7. This is Steve Orlando's run on Marauders. Hulk issue 9. This is the Predator variant, which I love seeing the Predator. And this is I have to look because I already forgot. This is Ryan Otley and Donny Cates writing the issue together. So it was Donny's idea and Ryan actually coming in and writing some of the stories. So if you're a Ryan Otley fan, this is a really cool blend of Ryan actually on writing, which we don't see a lot of.
I know it wouldn't go well for the Predator, but I'd like to see the Predator hunt Hulk.
I agree. Harley Quinn issue 22 with this Dark Knight variant. If you haven't been following along, this is Harley Quinn's 30th anniversary, and they're homaging all the classic DC covers with Harley Quinn. Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 5 of 7. This is the main part of the Death of the Justice League Dark Crisis situation. Captain America Sentinel of the Liberty issue 5. Black Adam, The Justice Files, Dr. Fate. Matt, close your eyes really fast. Okay, this is the movie variant of Black Adam. So there you go. I don't want you to see what, because I know you hate spoilers. Beyond the Beyond, issue 4 from Scout Comics. I love that series, by the way. If you are looking for a new sci-fi series from Scout, that's a great one. Batman Beyond the White Knight. This is issue 5. If you are a fan of the White Knight series, this is what would happen with Terry McGinnis's Batman Beyond. Speaking of Batman, Chip Zdarsky's Batman is back with issue 128. Possibly a new costume in that. Because the issue 129 shows the cover has the new costume, and Josh was telling me that the costume looks, it's very different in there.
No, that's the...
It's on the cover of 129. It's those colors on the cover.
That's the Batman of Zur-En-Aw.
Is not actually Batman?
He's a Batman from
another planet.
He's the Zur-En-Aw
so did
Batman.
he bring him in?
Yeah,
Ooh, yep, he did. Uh-oh. Let's see what Chip Zdarsky is up to.
This art style is It's still Jimenez?
It's Jimenez. Mm-hmm. Show them
what
you're talking about.
Never mind. It goes back. This must be a backup story. It has to be.
I don't know.
Because this is this art style is very Golden Age Batman.
I don't know. There's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, there's a backup story. So it's Batman Zur-En-Aw Year 1.
But then that's the cover of the next Batman.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a variant cover.
We'll see. Yeah, it was a variant, but
okay.
But usually the backup stories don't get a cover.
Romero.
We'll
I like
see.
the art story. I mean, I like Zur-En-Aw. It's a cool.
Yeah, look at you with you always love the Elseworlds weird shit.
I do.
Nice House on the Lake is back with issue 10. We are starting to see something. I don't know. We're only supposed to get 12 issues, and I still don't know if we're gonna ever get to what is going on in Nice House on the Lake. Junkyard, and I mean that in a good way because I love James Tynion and everything he does. Junkyard Joe, issue 1. This is a spinoff of Geiger. If you didn't get a black and white variant, the black and white variants actually go to the money from the black and white variants go towards supporting veteran funding in America.
Oh, nice.
Which is super cool. Archie's Halloween special. They're always great and wonderful. You need to read it. Ant-Man issue 4.
This is the final issue.
Is it?
It's only a 4-issue
miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Axe. This is the Star Fox cover. Now we're drawing him to look like Harry Styles.
Yeah, kind of.
That's like Harry Styles' outfit on his tour right now.
I have to. After this, I want to talk to you about a possible casting rumor.
Ooh,
I saw today.
We'll talk about it off camera.
I want to know your opinion on.
All right, we'll talk about it off camera without Matt.
Why? Because I want Matt a part of it.
He hates casting rumors.
But they're rumors.
He hates it. Sergeant Rock versus Army of Dead. This is Bruce Campbell writing a Army of Dead Sergeant Rock book.
What more could you want?
I'm not gonna lie. The thing that I love most that DC is doing right now is this paper quality. Like this matte, paper that they're doing and not going with the glossy stuff. First of all, a lot of their books are in this old time right now, so it really, really works very well for the time period. But I'm really here for this matte paper style that they're doing at DC. If you have to take your paper shortage in taking in the direction of going matte is really great. Image, the 30th anniversary, issue 6. This is filled with anthology stories, some of them that have continued throughout the entirety of Image, some of them that are just one-shots. There is a Jeff Johns, Andrea Muti story in here that I've been reading that's like a slasher story. Scotty Young does a story in all the time. Looks like Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti have one in this one. I always love the Scotty Young ones because they're just Scotty Young. It almost seems like Scotty Young... The whole premise is that Scotty Young forgot to do his story every time, and it's great to see what he comes up with. Never Ender, issue 5 from Sumerian / Behemoth Comics. This is your high sci-fi story from them. Illusion Witch book 4 from Sumerian. This is all about a girl who fakes being a witch but might actually be one. Rogue Sun issue 7. Oh my god. Congratulations, Kyle Higgins, for just This is Ryan Parrott writing it, but Kyle Higgins creating the supermassive universe and getting it that big. We're 7 issues into one of 4 spinoffs. Good God. Good. Congratulations. And Ryan Parrott, you are killing it on Rogue Sun. That is actually one of my favorite of the supermassive stories. Shadow Service issue 15 from Vault Comics. This is What If There Was an MI666? All the supernatural stuff handled by a governmental agency. Triskel, this is another beautiful high fantasy book from Scout Comics, issue 4. Jenny Zero, issue 4 of volume 2. Don't know if this is the end of volume 2.
Most likely.
But it is definitely not the end of Jenny Zero.
No.
Oh my God, the cliffhanger this one left on. I'm excited.
Let's just keep it rolling with the Jenny Zero.
They have no way but to, because the literally this issue ended on a major cliffhanger. I don't know if they're gonna go one more issue and try to wrap it up. There's no way that you can. Just gotta say. You just keep going. Just keep giving me Jenny Zero forever. Back in stock on trade paperbacks. We've got The Passageway. Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino. This is the lead into the Bone Orchard mythos, which is both of these artists and creators flexing on their
I didn't
talent.
read that issue. I wasn't here that week.
Right, I haven't. Don't worry. There's tons of it left.
Okay.
I ordered a stupid amount because I'm obsessed with Jeff Lemire.
I mean, this is my creative team right here. This is
right, Sorrentino, Lemire is your shit.
Put those two together, I'm in forever.
Let's just stick with hardcovers and in stocks for a second, because I like to take Phil's money. Long Halloween is continuing. This is actually a hardcover cover of all the prequels of the Haunted Night series. So this is
that's cool.
This right, I knew that was going to get you. This is Batman Fears, Batman Madness, and Batman Ghost. If you didn't know, for Long Halloween, it originally started as 3 one-shots done over 3 different years between Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. And after the 3rd one, DC was like, why don't you just create a whole series? And Long Halloween was born out of that. These are the 3 one-shots that came pre-Long Halloween. If you haven't read them, this is a great way to get them in a beautiful hardcover. And it matches on the spine with the new version of Long Halloween and Catwoman 1 in Rome.
Is there a Catwoman 1 in Rome hardcover?
There is. I think there's one in your box, dude.
No.
There might be.
Good God, that's an expensive one.
It is true. Well, it's Long Halloween Day, so of course there is. Hell, Nebraska. This is from CEX Publishing. This is what would you do if you discovered that hell doesn't exist and you took on the role of the devil himself? This is all about hell being located in Nebraska.
Did we talk about this book?
We have not. We actually did not get the issues. And another another comic store who's in Nebraska was talking about how great this was for their town, because it was in there. Show them the art. You're hoarding it. Don't hoard the art. They talked about this, and I was like, oh my God, I have to check out this book. So I ordered it. It's pretty. It's pretty colors. I really like the coloring.
I feel like this was
a web book?
Yeah.
It was. I believe it might have been electronic first.
Because I'm pretty sure when it was out, I think I read the first issue when that came out. Oh, man, that's cool. All right.
Yeah. Don't freak out. Rain got a hardcover. I know. This is a beautiful book from David Boer, who writes Canto, and Zoe Thorgood. This is a Joe Hill story turned into a comic book. This is the hardcover. It is all about a rain that falls from the sky that is made out of nails and other sharp objects, and one couple that kind of suffers through the whole thing, and it's beautiful. Also, a Syzygy book. I'm gonna learn how to say that before comics stop being printed. Image. Also, this week we've got Volume 2 of Sweet Paprika, which is a Mirka and Doffo book, and possibly one of my favorite rom-com stories of the year. I'm here for the fact that we're putting romantic comedies all over the face of comic books. Let's keep going. And this is an angel and a demon and the classic romantic comedy kind of storyline. It's so good. This was nominated for a 2020 Best International Book for Harvey Awards. So, well done and well deserved, Mirka. It's fantastic. I don't know which one of these two next. Let's do Volume 1 of Little Monsters. Speaking of Jeff Lemire, this is Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen telling a different take on the vampire resurgence that we're seeing.
Yeah, children vampires.
Children vampires in a world where they've never seen a human. What if a bunch of children were kind of raised on their own and just for the first time see a human? What is the emotional way that would take? What is the toll that would affect them physically? You know, Jeff Lemire always has to have a different take on the same story everybody else is doing. Here it is. And that's issues 1 through 6, but I don't think it's a complete story. I think it continues.
Yeah, no, it continues.
Yeah. And speaking of things that continued, Volume 2 of this was recently announced, but Juniba's Monkey Meat from Image Comics. This is the first 5 issues. This is an anthology series about a corporation that completely and totally just destroys humanity. And I love everything about this book. It is fantastic. If you haven't read it yet, you read it. What did you think, Phil?
I enjoy it. It's just kind of one of those wonky books where it's a ton of fun. There's a really great story about the delivery boy.
Oh, that's the best one.
That's
issue 3?
Yeah, maybe issue 2 or 3. But yeah, this is just really great. Juniba is very, very talented. It's weird because it says Juniba did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I don't even know which Turtles Juniba did.
I need to look
now I have to look that up. Yeah.
I need to look into that. But yeah, this is a really fun book. Great art.
Yeah,
show
them the art really fast.
It's great.
It's a delivery boy story.
But yeah, I'm glad that this is going to be coming back because it's just one of those weird books where you're going to pick it up and you're like, what am I reading? But then it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, things out this week. We've got more Amazing Spider-Man number 11. The new Daredevil issue 4 is out. Venom, Wolverine, Wonder Woman, X-Force, all things continuing. Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue 16 is out. Ghost Rider, issue 7. Spawn, 334. Batman versus Robin, issue 2. That's been kind of a delay. I feel like it's been forever since we've seen that.
Yeah.
The next Death to the Mutants is out this week for the Axe stories. Batman Urban Legends is out this week, and I actually just ordered the one for like the next couple weeks, and it's got a Michael Cho cover, and it's so cute. I love Michael Cho. Batgirls, issue 11, finally out. Go away, I accidentally pressed the button, sorry. So, we've got Gambit back again, Jurassic League, Ninja Turtles, 133 is out this week, Once in Future 30. We are coming to the end of Once in Future. Black Panther issue 10, X-Men, the Axe Eternals issue is coming out. Green Arrow, The Dark Crisis, World Without Justice League has a Green Arrow special. We don't see a lot of Green Arrow. Excited to see a one-shot from Green Arrow.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. Future State Gotham issue 18 is the only Future State title still going. Do a Powerbomb issue 5. High Republic returns this week. Iron Fist gets an Axe issue. Another new Star Wars number 1. Batman Incorporated. There's always a new Batman series. Love Everlasting issue 3, which is the Tom King book at Image that I'm super digging. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Punisher War Journal is back. Namor is back with his own title. Wakanda is getting a title. DC Terrors Through Time, and I know everybody's hot on that VHS variant for the horror issue. Starhinge is back with issue 4. We got Hitomi issue 1, a new title from Image. Seven Sons number 5. Dark Spaces Wildfire issue 4. The Approach coming out from Boom Studios. Masquerade issue 2 is out, which I'm excited you'll be here this week to talk about it. Chilling Adventures of Salem. Archie fan through and through. Salem is getting his own Chilling Adventures. Very excited about that. Image is getting a one-shot called Halloween Party. Chicken Devil returns this week for Volume 2. Brian Bucaletta, we are excited for that. Least We Can Do issue 2, volume 0 of year 1 is out this week. Erratic returns with issue 2 for the new volume. We've got a bunch of stuff from Dynamite. Elves issue 3 is out this week. Very excited about that. Godzilla Monsters vs. Protectors is out again this week. Locust returns with issue 2 for their volume 2 from Scout. Always excited to see a volume 2 on a Scout title. Mega Centurions is out this week. Samurai 2.0 is finally out. I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. Junior, which is a new Scout comic, launches this week. So many things. Ice Canyon Monster issue 2 from Blood Canyon. This is going to be a big week for another big week for a lot of small indie press books. I'm not there. It just keeps going. August already has its issue 2 this week. So there's a lot of exciting books coming out this week. I can't wait to see what they are. Can't wait to see what your thoughts are. We are going to tell you all about them next Sunday, but if you want to pick them up and start reading them, they will be out on Wednesday for New Comic Book Day here in the store. As always, I'm super excited. There's a lot of comic book news. I'm just going to leave you with a big thing. I read an article this week. Mike Flanagan out. Netflix dropped Mike Flanagan as the Something Is Killing the Children creator for the TV show. So Netflix decided to go a different direction and drop Mike Flanagan. I have lots of thoughts. Most of them include me shaking my head no in the same way that Matt is shaking his no behind the scenes. I was really looking forward to a Mike Flanagan Something Is Killing the Children. I thought Midnight Mass was a 10 out of 10 perfect show. I thought getting a Something Is Killing the Children like that was going to be great. I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you're watching this on Facebook right now or you're watching this on YouTube later. If you have thoughts on the changes to Something Is Killing the Children at Netflix, let me know. And New York Comic Con had a lot of great, incredible things coming out of it. I can't wait to talk to you more about some of the exciting announcements we saw as we wrap up that, but we're going to let that come to a close today and kind of flesh through. We don't want to spoil anything. So, that said, we will see you in the store on Wednesday, and if we don't see you then, we will see you next Sunday as we wind down your weekend here on our Facebook channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Time or throughout the week on YouTube. Thanks so much. This is Wednesday Phil. I'm Small Press Shann. Bye!